Rumor has it the white snowfield is the literal core of the planet, an absolute icebox crawling with nightmare fuel. We are talking massive white snakes inhaling entire glaciers, and humongous gray bears causing literal earthquakes with every single step. Oh, and throw in a diseased mutant rat that can turn the ocean into a toxic dump. But get this, an emperor actually made it out alive, and he swore the monsters were the least of your problems. Cut to the dead center of this frozen hellscape. A dude squares up against a psychotic scorpion beast. The fight is brutal, but he literally one-shots it in seconds. Right after, his sidekick rolls his eyes, roasting him for acting exactly like an unhinged barbarian who flexes his own stupidity like a designer brand. The silver-haired kid just mutters under his breath, internally screaming over how much longer he has to babysit these absolute clowns. Then, the girl of the squad chimes in. With zero irony, she asks what ignorance means and if she can eat it. He facepalms so hard, hitting her with a massive sigh and telling her to just drop it. Fast forward a bit, and he is absolutely losing his mind, screaming at them for wolfing down the exact stash of food he promised would literally end their lives. He cannot fathom how they demolished the entire supply in less than 7 days. But honestly, the girl and the bald dude genuinely think he is hyping them up, acting like scarfing down poison was some kind of epic boss battle. Out of nowhere, the bald guy, Greta, grabs his gut and completely drops dead weight to the floor. The girl absolutely loses it, shaking him like a rag doll and screaming at him to wake up. While this chaos goes down, our guy is just standing there, realizing this is 0% the vibe he asked for. We get a flashback, back to when he was desperate to get isekai'd into a magical fantasy realm. He actually quit his 9-to-5 and went on a massive global trek, scaling the highest peaks, diving toward the Earth's core, and pushing all the way to the South Pole. But spoiler alert, absolutely nothing happened. Every single night he manifested, begging the universe to pull him out of his boring reality and drop him into a magic tier world. His actual life was painfully mid, but he refused to let go of the delusion until suddenly, the universe hit reply. The scene violently shifts. A dude is shaking uncontrollably in sub-zero temps, ice blasting his face. His buddy, dragging his feet next to him, snaps, "Bundle up in more pelts, unless you are trying to become a human popsicle." These guys are hired guns, tailing their captain on a suicide run across the legendary white snowfield. One merc is loudly complaining that the mission is straight-up self-sabotage, no matter how massive the bag is at the end. He calls hiking through this wasteland pure insanity. The captain instantly shuts him down, throwing it in his face that they all signed the contract, but the dude claps back that nobody mentioned they would be walking through liquid nitrogen. Meanwhile, tucked away in a bougie, heated carriage, an old butler leans in to check on a young aristocrat. Lady Melina of House Akasha, holding up, "All right?" he asks. She replies super casually, "Totally fine." Right outside the window, you can hear the guards crying about the freezing weather. The butler glares, calling them trash dogs, but Melina steps in to defend them, telling him to chill out. After all, they were the only crazy ones willing to play bodyguard on this doomed snowfield road trip. She even pitches bringing the crew inside since the frostbite is getting real. The butler hard vetoes the idea, reminding her she knows exactly what is hiding in the blizzard. "You mean the creepers out there?" she guesses. The old man nods and drops some heavy lore. Way back, an emperor who wanted global domination tried to flex on the white snowfield. To pull it off, he dragged his most cracked warriors straight into the freezing abyss. Fast forward a few years, his whole empire ghosted him, and he dragged himself back totally alone, looking 50 years older and completely out of his mind. He backed up the rumors about the monsters, but swore the real final boss was not a beast, it was the barbarian. To him, this zone was literal hell on earth, a one-way ticket to the graveyard. The butler brushes it off as some creepy campfire story, but Melina pushes back, saying the Emperor's warnings were totally legit, especially since basically every single mutant he described turned out to be 100% real. The old guy smiles and gives her that point, but adds that, at the end of the day, literally 0 people have actually caught a barbarian on camera. Melina has to agree. Cut to outside. The captain abruptly throws a hand up, slamming the brakes on the squad. He glares into the blizzard. "We got company," he barks. Through the whiteout, they spot a blurry shadow locking onto them. "The good news," the captain says, "it is tiny. The bad news, it is making a beeline right for us." The mercs instantly lock in, sweating bullets, as the silhouette shreds through the storm. For a split second, it just looks like a random dude. But then reality hits, and pure panic sets in. It is a freaking barbarian. The guy just strolls up to them with maximum nonchalance. "The vibes were awful back at camp, so I just went for a walk," he deadpans. "Name is Cattle, Achin tribe." He scopes out the terrified squad, a wicked smirk spreading across his face. "What are the odds, huh? Random tourists in the middle of nowhere. Talk about hitting the jackpot," Keatle smirks. His eyes sweep over the heavily armed squad, instantly clocking them as hired muscle, escorting a rich VIP's transport. He drops a casual warning to spin around and head home, totally knowing these guys are way too stubborn to actually listen. Shifting his gaze to the luxury wagon, he casually questions if the boss is hiding out in there. Out of nowhere, he hits them with the most chillingly polite grin. "Put me on the payroll too," he drops. The entire crew completely short circuits, dead silent, until one guy finally stammers out, begging for context. Ketal lays it out flat. He is willing to carry them through this frozen death trap. Obviously, that just makes their paranoia skyrocket. Like, why on earth is a myth-tier warrior trying to clock in as a basic freelancer? One dude actually finds the guts to say the quiet part out loud. "Wait, so we aren't fighting?" Ketal does not miss a beat. "Bro, if I wanted smoke, you guys would already be painted on the snow," he states. Sweaty eye contact bounces around the squad before everyone snaps their heads toward the squad leader, silently screaming for orders. Meanwhile, catching the whole broadcast from inside the cab, Milena and her attendant wait as the commander approaches to drop the sit rep. So get this, the absolute unit of a mountain man wants to be a bodyguard. The assistant whispers what would go down if they just jumped him, and the boss shuts that down instantly. He straight up vetoes the suicide mission. Milena processes the facts, keeps her cool, and locks in her choice. Hire him. The commander throws a quick bow and heads out to break the news, which earns him a massive, satisfied smirk from Ketal. But instead of chilling at his post, our guy marches straight for the VIP ride, sending the commander into an absolute panic. Catching the dude's meltdown, Ketal tells him to take a breath. "Chill, we are co-workers now. I gotta have a word with management." Sweating bullets, the leader threatens to throw hands if Ketal tries anything sketchy. The barbarian completely ignores him. One guard freaks out about letting a monster near the boss lady, but his buddy just laughs, basically saying trying to stop this unit would be the ultimate prank. Back in the cab, the attendant loses his mind as Milena gets ready to face the music, but she orders him to keep his composure. Suddenly, that deep, booming voice rumbles through the door, politely requesting permission to step inside. The actual manners totally throw her for a loop, but she swallows her nerves and gives him the green light. The heavy door swings wide, and the absolute unit squeezes in. He side-eyes the shaking assistant. "Assuming your heart rate dropped? I am not here to crash the party." Milena is absolutely glitching out. An actual walking myth is crashing her ride. She stammers out a shaky welcome, and he just hits her back with the most relaxed, chill head bob. Checking out the luxury setup, Ketal points out that flexing this much heat in a literal freezer biome takes some serious effort. Milena reveals they are using mana to run the heater, and that instantly gets a solid seal of approval from him, as if it just confirmed his own headcanon about this dimension. Then, he cuts the small talk and goes right for the throat. "This zone is lethal," he warns. "With your current squishy escort, your odds of making it out are basically zero. I will carry your team, but I need one thing in return." Milena bites, asking for his price. "Lore," Ketal drops. He wants all the tea on the outside realm, whatever is in her brain. She tries to interrogate him, but he promises her she will not lose a single HP from talking. Recognizing she is holding zero leverage, she caves. His hardcore aura instantly drops. "Bet. So, who am I working for?" She drops her noble title, Milena of House Akasha. Flashing a wicked grin, he fires back. "Call me Ketal. Looking forward to the grind." We suddenly dive into our boy's headspace, flashing back to when he used to pray for that sweet, sweet isekai transition, and how the universe granted that wish, but gave him the absolute worst spawn point in history. Just straight up woke up one day as a ripped savage dumped in the middle of a literal Ice Age deathmatch. Zero tutorial, zero time to process, just bone-shattering frost, endless waves of aggro beasts, and the massive headache of babysitting an entire clan. Every single cycle was a hardcore survival run, and he basically tanked through it while completely dead on the inside. For literal ages, Ketal sweated blood trying to break out of that frozen trash mob zone. But some invisible admin wall, disguised as a glitched-out quest, kept him hard-locked, meaning he could not cross the border until he cleared the objective. Yet, no matter how hard he grinded, the progress bar stayed frozen. Right when he was about to rage-quit existence, random travelers started dropping in. He thought they were completely insane for entering this nightmare server, until he connected the dots, and his motivation gauge spiked back to 100%. The map right outside his icy prison was the exact magical wonderland he had been obsessing over his entire past life. After that reality check, his whole mindset flipped. He was not just scraping by anymore, he was plotting his jailbreak. Flashbacks hit of him steamrolling bosses and speedrunning every single mission that popped up, fully fueled by one massive goal. "I am breaking out of here." And since he was still stuck behind the barrier, any random lore drop from visitors became high-tier loot to him. Too bad most NPCs he ran into either pulled aggro out of pure fear or completely lost their minds from the biome's trauma. It had been a solid eternity since he actually got to vibe with someone who possessed a functional brain. Chatting with Milena honestly felt like a breath of fresh air compared to hanging out with mindless savages all day. Flashback ends, and we slam right back into the present. Keatle shoots a side-eye at the wagons and casually drops a bomb. "You are hauling weapons." Milena practically chokes. "Wait, how on earth did you figure that out?" The constant metallic clinking of steel is a dead giveaway from 10 feet away. He smirks. "So spill it. Is there a war going on out there?" Milena gives a grim nod, confirming that the Empire and the Kingdom are totally clashing right now. A faint, knowing grin creeps onto Keatle's face. "Guess the outside world is still a chaotic mess, huh?" She starts spilling the tea on the war, explaining how the massive Empire is just swarming everyone with endless troops. But the Kingdom is stubbornly holding their ground, flexing elite swordmasters and absolute legends at their borders to block the invasion. Those heavy titles instantly grab his attention. Swordmasters? Heroes? What kind of insane abilities are we talking about here? "Wait, you seriously do not know about mysticism?" She blurts out, totally baffled. "Dude, I have literally never left this frozen wasteland." Keatle shoots back deadpan. Milena admits she is not a total expert, but breaks down the basics. Mysticism, apparently, is this crazy rare energy. Barely anyone can even feel it, let alone use it. It is all broken down into tiers. Rank 3? That is just the baseline for feeling the energy flow. Rank 2 kicks things up to actively wielding it. Then you hit rank 1, where beasts can physically manifest that energy into raw mana or pure aura. Your standard heavy hitters like knights, wizards, and elementalists hang out in that tier. But anything past rank 1, the whole ranking system just completely falls apart, because those monsters are entirely out of human comprehension. She hypes up the transcendent tier. We are talking absolute units who bend mysticism to their will, literally splitting the sky and shattering the earth. Your average swordmaster easily sits in this god tier bracket, and sitting at the absolute peak is the hero, an unreal, mythic existence who does not just toss magic around, but straight up rewrites the destiny of the entire world. She wraps it up by claiming that even a basic rank 3 guy gets treated like a total boss in a small town. Hearing this insane lore drop, a wicked smile flashes across Keatle's face. "I kinda wanna fight them now." Milena just stares at him like he grew a second head. Deep down, though, Keatle's mind spirals into bitter thoughts. He has zero clue how many years he has wasted in this icy hellhole. The only constant has been an agonizing, non-stop grind just to stay alive. The only crystal clear truth is this one fact. He is stuck in some frozen tundra in a literal fantasy game setting, and he is going to break out no matter the cost. His gaze turns icy and razor sharp. He mentally corrects himself. This is not a desire to leave. It is an absolute, do-or-die necessity. Snapping him out of it, Milena picks the chat back up. She cautiously asks if he is actually the mythical savage from the ancient fairy tales. "You could definitely say that," Keatle shoots back. Catching her vibe, he realizes she already had him pegged as the guy. She confirms there is straight up a whole legend written about his existence, which genuinely catches him off guard. A low chuckle escapes him as the puzzle pieces click into place. That total psycho he beat up ages ago, that had to be the emperor she was hyping up. "Well, your story is spot on," he admits, because a lunatic matching that description definitely showed up here way back in the day. Pivoting hard, Keatle's eyes lock onto hers with intense suspicion. "Why the hell are you smuggling an absolute mountain of steel through literally the deadliest murder zone in this entire tundra?" Pressed for answers about this suicide mission, Milena cracks and spills her tragic backstory. Her family, a massive generational trading guild, got absolutely played by rival scumbags and buried under a mountain of massive debt. This insane trek through the ice? It is their one and only Hail Mary to dodge total bankruptcy. Keatle sizes her up for a second before a wicked, knowing smirk spreads across his face. "Oh, I get it. You are dumping all this hardware on the kingdom since they are currently brawling with the empire." Milena looks like she just saw a ghost. "Are you psychic?" He casually breaks down his flawless logic. "You literally just told me the empire is rushing them with endless troops. That means they are already strapped with gear. But the kingdom? They are probably starving for fresh blades. Supply and demand, kid. When everyone needs swords and nobody has them, the cash flow goes crazy. I might be out of touch with outside market prices, but I bet the massive payload at the end of this rainbow easily justifies the risk of getting brutally murdered out here." He drops one final truth bomb. "Plus, dragging wagons through this snowy hellscape means every other safe road to the kingdom is completely blocked off. They have to be sharing a heavily guarded border with the empire." Milena heavily sighs and nods. She is absolutely mind-blown by his detective skills. This dude is nothing like the mindless, uneducated brute from the bedtime stories. For the first time, she seriously starts questioning who the hell Keatle actually is. Out of nowhere, the wagon violently shakes like an earthquake just hit. The servant screams their lungs out, but Keatle barely blinks, Looks like party crashers, he mutters coldly. Out in the freeze, a gargantuan, twisted monstrosity erupts from the snowbanks, casting a horrifying shadow right over the panic-stricken mercs. The crew instantly clocks the threat, a black slime. Really? That is what you guys call it? Ketal scoffs. Milena nods furiously, rushing to explain that this terrifying freak of nature is super famous in their history books. For decades, stacked and fully geared adventurers tried to conquer this icy death trap. Almost zero of them made it out alive, but the lucky survivors wrote down everything they fought, and this dark, gooey nightmare showed up in almost every single survival log. She whips her head toward Ketal. Wait, you have fought these things too? Obviously. He deadpans without missing a beat. Super chewy texture. Honestly, not terrible if you need a quick snack. Solid protein, really. Milena looks at him like he is an absolute psychopath. You actually eat those? He just grins. You want a bite? I can grab us some fresh takeout right now. She violently shakes her head, totally disgusted. Hard pass. Thank you very much. Outside, the massive black ooze starts shifting, its entire jelly body violently pulsating as it winds up for a kill strike. The entire crew looks at Ketal, begging for a rescue, but he just throws up a hand to stop them. Hey, check the contract. I promise to keep you breathing. I only step in if you are actually about to die. Ketal just points a lazy finger at the massive, shadowy ooze towering over them. You guys got this one. He brushes them off. Besides, I gotta see what kind of stats the outside world is rocking these days. Suddenly, the monster launches its dead weight forward, causing a literal earthquake. Raise those shields, the squad leader screams at the top of his lungs. The hired guns dig their boots into the dirt, but the sheer impact of the blob's slam absolutely wrecks their defensive line. One dude tries to play main character, launching himself for an aerial strike, only to get swatted out of the sky like a totally helpless bug. Spitting curses at its insane stats while eating a face full of frost, the leader squints hard before a massive light bulb goes off in his head. This thing only charges straight forward. Fan out and sync up those hits. The crew immediately shifts gears, scattering across the icy battlefield. They start dodging the beast's super obvious dash attacks, sidestepping the heavy hits, and dropping synchronized combos. Blades flash in the freezing air, carving chunks out of that bouncy armor, while the monster rips out an ear-piercing shriek. Keep piling on the damage, the boss yells over the pure madness. But even their non-stop barrage just isn't cutting it. Basic hits are basically useless here. Find the core. It's hiding deep inside that jelly, the leader commands, as his personal sword starts radiating this intense aura, pumping out waves of pure heat. Screaming his lungs out, he plunges the flaming weapon straight down, ripping the ooze right down the middle. This glowing red heart pops out, and with one clean swing, he totally shatters it into a million pieces. The shadowy mass instantly folds, melting into a sizzling puddle of gross liquid. Gasping for air with dinner plate eyes, the squad starts hyping each other up, totally shocked they actually survived. Bro, we actually took it down. But that hype train derails instantly, as a deafening roar shakes the earth. Emerging from the blizzard is an absolute unit of a white wolf, hair standing on end and showing off some seriously lethal teeth. Go for the throat, a guy screams, throwing them right back into round two. Someone actually jumps onto the creature's back, blades sparking against the pale coat. Once the giant dog finally drops dead in the snow, one of the mercs just rolls his eyes, bragging that this legendary frozen wasteland is totally overhyped. The leader shoots him a deadly look. Stow the ego, we are not even close to the finish line. Then, the group's attention violently shifts over to Ketal. One dude starts asking if this so-called savage is actually the overpowered boss the Emperor hyped him up to be, especially since he has been totally away from keyboard this whole time. Another guy laughs, betting that Ketal is basically a low-tier nobody in this frozen hellscape, since he is actively hiding behind their shields, and pitches the idea of forcing him into a spar. Meanwhile, trapped inside the ride, it is awkwardly quiet between Melina and our boy, right up until a hired blade walks over, requesting a quick word with the boss lady. He points out that they are literally putting their necks on the chopping block to keep their end of the bargain. Melina looks right back at him, super genuine. I seriously cannot thank you guys enough. If you didn't have the guts to step up, I would have never made it out the front door. Literally, everyone else ghosted me when they read the quest details. But the guy does not back down. Look, well, we just have one major red flag here. That wild guy hasn't thrown a single punch. We gotta see if he actually earned all this crazy VIP treatment you were handing him. Up in the driver's seat, the leader grumbles that he tried to cancel this stupid plan, but his squad was being totally stubborn. Ketal, who had been just chilling and soaking it all in, finally opens his mouth. I am totally down to show you what I can do. He drops casually. Just not right this second. We got some party crashers heading our way, and they got here first. This super creepy, bass-boosted voice suddenly vibrates through the freezing wind. Oh, how sweet. A bunch of squishy little humans just waltzed right into my zone. Absolute snacks. The squad immediately freezes up, scanning the snowbanks in full panic mode. And that is when it finally drops in, an absolutely massive, bone-white snake, slithering through the blizzard like a literal sleep paralysis demon. Scream for me. Let it hurt. Your suffering is just extra seasoning. The pure, suffocating aura coming off this boss monster literally forces Melina and the crew to their knees, groaning in sheer pain. Catal just casually steps up, his voice totally slicing through the raging gale. Wrap it up. These guys are with me. Kick rocks. The giant snake tilts its head, locking those dead, freezing eyes right on him. Why are you crashing my turf, savage? You know the treaty? Your clan is banned from these parts. Literally, not your problem. Catal claps back with zero emotion. The snake's eyes turn into angry, glowing slits. Are you kidding me right now? I am the undying viper, rocking literal immortality, and you think you can boss me around? Catal just hits it with a savage smirk. Guess someone needs a brutal reality check. In a split second, he goes completely airborne. The clash between this guy and the boss creates a totally blinding nuke of energy that completely shreds the icy landscape. The sheer impact tosses the transport around like a cheap toy, making Melina shriek from the turbulence. Once the dust finally settles, Catal is just standing over the completely wrecked snake. Some fools really only understand catching hands, he mumbles to himself. Melina is literally starstruck as he winds up his weapon for round 2. Relax, he throws over his shoulder. I am about to speedrun this. A final, game-ending blow connects. A flashbang of pure light swallows the giant snake whole, erasing it from existence, leaving just a patch of melting ice behind. The same squad that was trash-talking him 5 minutes ago instantly drops to their knees, crying and praying for pure mercy. Catal just swats the air like it is no big deal. Whatever, giving strangers the benefit of the doubt is tough anyway. Then he pivots to Melina, squinting real hard. Got a quick question for you though. Based on your drip and how you talk, you are way more than some basic clan messenger. Why are you out here risking it all personally? Melina bites her lip before spilling the tea. Turns out, she's the eldest daughter of Velika, Lord Akasha's concubine. Her mom was basically a political pawn, used, tossed aside, and locked in a totally toxic, powerless life. Sure, they have the family name, but behind closed doors, they're treated like straight-up garbage, barely a step above the maids. She confesses she actually volunteered for this suicide mission just to prove a point. Catal slowly nods. Makes sense. He calls her out. She's brilliant, hungry for power, and ruthless. Right on cue, the brutal blizzard shatters, revealing an insane view. Vibrant, emerald grass. They finally hit the edge of the frozen hellscape. The whole mercenary squad freezes, completely stunned, soaking in the massive switch-up from the icy wasteland they just survived. Melina shoots Catal a genuinely thankful look. Thanks for everything, she whispers. He just brushes it off. Sell the gear, then take the Empire route back. It's way less of a headache. But Melina isn't letting his earlier comments slide. When you called me ambitious back there, what was that about? A sly smirk creeps onto Catal's face, exactly what it sounded like. He leans in close, dropping the truth bomb. Your noble house used to be top tier, but right now, they're bleeding cash and falling apart. His piercing eyes lock onto hers. If a supposedly worthless, illegitimate daughter steps up and drags the family out of bankruptcy single-handedly, who do you think the vassals are going to blindly follow? He lets the heavy silence do the talking before delivering the punchline. Your real endgame is a full hostile takeover of your own house, right? Melina doesn't blink, softly admitting he hit the nail on the head. Catal's grin widens. Classic underdog trope. The rejected kid risks it all to snatch the ultimate crown. Inside, Melina is completely mind-blown. This supposed savage is running laps around the fake, wannabe genius nobles back home. He's packing god-tier strength and zero blind spots. She starts fantasizing about having his insane abilities in her corner, the exact same power that folded the white serpent like cheap laundry. Shooting her shot, she pitches an offer. If you ever ditch this icebox, be my personal knight. Catal shakes his head. Hard pass for now. Got unfinished business. She doesn't push it. Instead, she slides off a flashy piece of jewelry and hands it over. If you ever make it out, track down the Akasha estate. Flash this bling, and they'll give you VIP access. Catal pockets it, smirking. Bet. They swap goodbyes, Melina praying their paths cross again before her carriage vanishes into the horizon. Flash forward 5 years. The frozen wasteland. A massive holographic screen pops up in Catal's face. Quest number 1. 1784 officially cleared. All requirements smashed. Then, the ultimate notification drops. You are now free to leave the snowfield. Finally, he marches toward a glowing, glitchy barrier. Ripping right through it, he takes a massive breath. Dirt, wildlife, Fresh water, the smell of actual life, floods his senses. For the first time in half a decade, a real, unhinged smile cracks across his face. He flips around to face the blinding white, screaming at the top of his lungs, "I am never going back to that absolute garbage dump." This was it, his literal first step into the epic fantasy realm he had been obsessing over. The tutorial zone was straight-up torture, but he tanked it. Now, dragons, elves, insane magic, and epic sword fights are literally waiting for him. He swears to squeeze every ounce of hype out of this second life. Honestly, his hardcore obsession with this fantasy universe is the only reason he didn't die out there. Suddenly, a cluster of voices shatters his internal monologue. A crowd. His heart practically jumps out of his chest. Has to be a village, a legit, civilized town. Basically heaven, after being stuck with feral barbarians who slept in the dirt. The vibe of a cozy, aesthetic human settlement hits him right in the feels. He's literally rehearsing his absolute best main character intro when a booming voice echoes through the trees. "Listen up, fellow elves. This sacred spot is our brand new sanctuary." Keetal hits the brakes. He peeks through the bushes, watching long-eared locals unpack and vibe out. Suddenly, a younger elf turns to the chief, looking completely stressed. "Are we actually safe in this spot?" The old guy nods confidently. 100%. "Sure, we're in the middle of nowhere, totally off the grid from humanity, but I get why that frozen wasteland creeps you out." The kid grimaces, panicking. "It's way too close, man. What if some freakish monster spawns?" The chief just chuckles softly. "Zero chance. Literally nothing has survived that ice block for millennia. Plus, we dropped our ultimate defense, max tier, ancient elven stealth magic. Any outsider just sees a bunch of boring trees. As long as the shield is up, we are completely invisible." He flexes even harder, and hey, even if a boss monster showed up, our absolute powerhouse of a queen would wreck it. Not even snowfield horrors mess with her. Cut to that exact second. Keetal is just casually strolling through the woods when he feels a weird, static pop, like ripping through invisible bubble wrap. He stops, looking around like, what the heck was that? But he brushes it off immediately, completely clueless that he just casually shattered their impenetrable, ancient magical firewall. Whistling to himself, he struts deeper into the woods, just wondering when he'll finally find a decent tavern. That is, until his eyes land on a tiny, wandering elf kid. His pulse skyrockets. An actual elf, the mythical beings he obsessed over, way back in his past life. Suddenly, clawing his way through that brutal snowfield totally pays off. The little girl, though, she is absolutely terrified and sobbing, having strayed way off the map. Keetal steps up, dropping a super friendly greeting, but the second they lock eyes, she completely short-circuits and passes out cold. Snatching her right out of the air, Keetal just stands there, totally dumbfounded. Great. What is the play here? Since chatting is off the table, he figures hauling her back to her hometown is the best move. He remembers the lore elves are supposed to be chill, pure-hearted pacifists, right? If he drops off the lost kid safely, they are bound to roll out the red carpet. That wholesome fantasy has him practically glowing with excitement. But the second he rolls into their hidden sanctuary holding the knocked-out toddler, reality smacks him in the face. A woman, obviously, the mom lets out this gut-wrenching shriek. "My baby!" Her voice is absolutely shaking with pure terror as she locks onto the human holding her kid. Instantly, every elf in the zone pulls out steel, hitting him with death glares. "Who the heck are you? How did you bypass the ward?" Keetal just blinks, mentally tossing his wholesome expectations out the window. The village elder steps up, visibly shaken. "No way! A filthy human inside our safe zone." Another scout sprints over, panicking. "Boss, the shield has been compromised." All the blood straight up leaves the elder's face. "Get Her Majesty, now." She is out running a quick recon mission, a random guard yells back. Keetal throws his free hand up, trying to defuse the vibe. "Yo, chill out. I am on your side." A heavily armed warrior instantly shuts him down. "Drop the kid, or I will personally end your bloodline." The elder looks absolutely grim. The ward is shattered. We are fully exposed. These humans must have been plotting this ambush for ages. Just how long have they been stalking us? Suddenly, it clicks. For Keetal, they seriously think he is some creep. He realizes he better squash this beef right now. Moving super carefully, he places the groggy little girl back on the grass. "Go on, head back to your mom." The kid just stares at him like she saw a ghost. Then, letting out an ear-piercing scream, she completely books it to her mother. She is bawling so hard that Keetal is genuinely caught off guard. "Bro, is my resting face actually that terrifying?" Feeling low-key hurt, he remembers thinking he looked pretty good back in the tundra. "Look," he insists, desperately trying to use logic. "I literally just dropped her off safe and sound. I am not the bad guy." But the elder roars over his explanation. "The hostage is secure. Light him up." Dozens of bowstrings snap tight, and a lethal wave of arrows slices right at him. Kital drops a massive sigh, wondering if he is just talking to a brick wall. While deadly projectiles blot out the sky, he gets super cynical. The fairy tales hyped elves up as these sweet, tree-hugging pacifists. But in real life, these guys are trigger-happy menaces. Then, the epiphany hits. Elves are part of nature, and nature runs strictly on survival of the fittest. Honestly, their ruthless energy completely adds up. They do not vibe with harmonious peace, they only respect apex predator dominance. As the storm of arrows finally connects, they literally just ping off his skin like toy darts. He does not even blink, he just stands there, soaking in the reality check. These mythical beings are straight-up thugs. The entire firing squad freezes, jaws on the floor. The elder is absolutely shook. What kind of overpowered cheat item is that guy rocking? He instantly regains composure and barks orders. Keep shooting, his defenses have to break eventually. Barely annoyed, Keto lets out a slow breath. Alright, let us take the temperature down a notch, yeah? With barely a twitch, he unleashes this absolutely absurd shockwave of purple aura. An ear-shattering explosion rips through the clearing, sending out a concussive blast that straight-up ragdolls the entire elf squad like they are nothing. The smoke finally clears, revealing a massive crater. Right in the dead center stands Ketal, not a hair out of place. I am not looking for a fight, he repeats, keeping his tone serious but chill. He winces internally. Okay, maybe I flexed a bit too hard there, he admits to himself. But before the stunned locals can even breathe, a scorching arrow, engulfed in pure phoenix fire, tears across the sky and nukes Ketal with terrifying force. The absolute shockwave rattles the entire forest, spraying wild flames everywhere. The shooter steps into view. Dripping with royal aura and blazing fire is the elf queen herself, Marceria Hasiane Carusia. What is the meaning of this mess? She snaps. The elder scrambles to bow. My queen, some rogue human smashed our defenses and ambushed the camp. Her expression turns pitch black. My worst fears confirmed our sanctuary is blown. Ketal shouts over the chaos, taking one last shot at diplomacy. Hold up, I am literally not trying to throw hands, but the elder is too busy losing his mind. Bro, how is he still alive after tanking that? The queen glares daggers at him. I see, just another overpowered assassin sent to wipe us out. Her voice is dripping with pure venom. Humans, you absolute trash. She knocks a brilliantly glowing arrow, pure magic sparking off her fingers. I am Marceria Hasiane Carusia, sovereign of the Leaf Tribe, and you are going to pay in blood for trespassing on our turf. Kettle grinds his teeth, officially reaching his limit. We literally speak the exact same language. Why is nobody comprehending my words? Is the racial tension genuinely this toxic, or is this chick just totally ignoring me? His face goes completely deadpan. Alright, bet. Time to bust out the snowfield strats. If chatting fails, I will just beat some sense into them. The queen lets her bowstring snap. Mid-flight, the arrow straight up morphs into a gigantic ghost dragon, screaming through the air right at Ketal's face. Zero hesitation. Raw power surges around his knuckles, snapping like live wires as he roars and winds up for a brutal payback. He drives a haymaker straight down the beast's throat. Boom. A massive shockwave detonates, bleaching the entire sky in pure, blinding white. The blast tosses the elven monarch like a ragdoll. She eats dirt, completely rattled and scraped up, while our guy just stares down at his own knuckles. Man, I seriously gotta learn how to chill out, he mutters. A few yards away, Her Majesty is glitching out. The sheer horsepower on this dude, it is completely off the charts. One trade of blows, and she instantly knows she is dealing with an absolute god-tier threat. But what is the catch? What is a walking nuke doing in her territory? Shaking off the daze, she forces herself up. Fall back, she screams. Get out of here right now. Her squad scrambles, retreating into the tree line. Squaring up against Ketal, she drops her temperature to freezing. You might have crazy stats, but whatever twisted prize you are hunting for, you are not getting it today. Ketal grits his teeth. Absolute train wreck. The guy literally just wanted a friendly chat. But she is already locking in, whispering out these deep, ancient incantations that make the very air bake and warp. The earth splits open, birthing a massive, horned juggernaut, completely draped in roaring hellfire. Meet Vigo, a literal titan of a blazing bull, rumored to pack the hottest flames in the entire spiritual plane. Ketal's heart skips a beat. Hype floods his veins. Sure, those ice wastes creeps were scary, but they were just mutated, ugly freaks straight out of a horror flick. This right here, this hits entirely different. Staring down a majestic beast woven from actual plasma, sporting horns that glowed like dripping, liquid gold. Not some random mob, an actual, mythical entity. Bro's eyes practically shine as he thinks, now this is the peak fantasy content I signed up for. Her voice cuts through the heat, sharp and absolute. Wipe him off the map. The blazing colossus huffs out a cloud of black smoke, grumbling in an earth-shaking baritone. These binding pacts are such a massive drag. Shut it, the royal barks back. Deep down, she is sweating. High-tier entities are notoriously boomerish and cocky. She only managed to lock down this summon by calling in massive favors from a neighboring clan, never thinking she would have to burn her ultimate trump card like this. Do your job, she demands. The flaming bull lazily shifts his burning optics over to our boy. So, the deal is dusting this puny mortal? Suddenly, he freezes. The sheer pressure radiating off Keatal literally makes the spirit's fire stutter. That energy. Is this guy even human? On the flip side, our MC is just standing there fangirling over the magic, until the reality check finally hits him. Wait, he is the raid boss they are trying to take down. The hype instantly evaporates into a major eye roll. The spirit's tone drops, dripping with pure disgust. Some fleshbag thinks he can mess with the children of the forest? I will turn you into literal confetti. The Titan goes full throttle, rushing forward like a runaway freight train of hellfire. Keatal plants his feet. Boom. The air literally shatters. The royal leader winces against the violent wind, only to peel her eyes open and freeze in pure shock. He has not moved a single inch. He is casually palming the bull's superheated horn like he is stopping a toddler's toy car. A wicked grin stretches across his face. Okay, now we are talking. Smashing mindless beasts? That is exactly my aesthetic. With one effortless flex, he drops the hammer. The kinetic blowout rips through the timberline, pulverizing boulders to dust and launching sonic booms straight into the stratosphere. She screams over the deafening roar as her lush, green turf gets completely wiped off the server, leaving behind a massive, smoking crater. Right in the dead center, our guy casually strolls up to the bruised and broken leader. Staring up at him, absolutely crushed, she begs, "Please, just leave my squad alive." Bro just sighs. "I literally am not the bad guy here," he says, super chill. She just blankly stares, her brain completely short-circuiting. Fast forward through some serious yelling and aggressive peace talks, the squad finally wraps their heads around the fact that he is not here for blood. The boss lady walks up to him herself, dropping a deep bow of shame. "We jumped the gun big time," she admits. "I am so sorry for jumping down the throat of the hero who brought back our missing kid." Keatal gives her a nod. "Hey, the paranoia is valid. You guys got evicted from your own biome by mankind. Being on edge makes sense. Though, not gonna lie, getting immediately attacked before I could even drop a hello was pretty foul." She squints at him, analyzing his vibe. "So, you aren't part of the hit squads targeting us?" Bro just shrugs. "Honestly, you are the first pointy-eared person I have ever met. We definitely do not have those in the white snowfield." The second he drops that location, her eyes practically bulge out of her skull. "The frozen wastes? Wait, does that make you the Ashen Barbarian?" A cheeky smirk tugs at his lips. "Yeah, that is the gamer tag people slapped on me." She shakes her head, mind blown. The lore literally states that 0 humans can survive that hellscape. Her face drops, a new wave of panic washing over her delicate features. "If you broke out of the icy prison, does that mean other psychos are gonna flood out too?" He quickly shuts that down. "Look, I cannot predict the future, but highly unlikely. That zone has ironclad programming that not even top-tier dragons can bypass. Somehow, I was the sole player who unlocked the exit. It was tied to clearing some insane hidden quest. Trust me, my run was a 1 in a million glitch." You can physically see the tension melt out of her shoulders. He tilts his head, gesturing at the mess behind them. "So, what about your fiery pet?" he asks deadpan. The massive bull is currently lying there, neatly bisected into 2 pieces. A tiny, relieved smile finally graces her lips. "Chill out, it is fine. These elemental entities are just energy. They do not get a game over like regular flesh and blood. It merely crossed back over to the spirit realm," she explains, completely dropping her guard. Her voice shifts, turning dead serious. "And hey, my bad for acting completely out of line earlier. Name your price. I can make any wish happen." But that single word spirit is already living rent-free in Kettle's head. He locks eyes with her. Hold up, can outsiders actually forge a pact with those things? You can practically see the gears turning in her head as she bites her lip. Under normal circumstances, 0 chance. But then her expression softens. Though, if a human possesses an insane connection to nature, a bond could totally happen. Ketal's eyes instantly light up. "Spill the details. How do I do it?" She lets out a heavy breath before dropping the absolute bombshell. "You need to make your way to Alodo. It is the ultimate holy ground of my people, the exact place our deity calls home. If you are lucky, you might stumble upon a spirit down to make a deal." Ketal raises an eyebrow. "And they would just let a random human waltz right in?" She nods slowly. "If I back you up, maybe. But you have to swear to keep the coordinates strictly off the radar." Deep down, anxiety is eating her alive. Elosagrad is the literal beating heart of the elven civilization. Leaking its location to outsiders is basically the ultimate taboo. Giving humans that kind of intel usually ends in absolute disaster. Still, ignoring every giant red flag in her mind, she decides to take a massive gamble. Reaching into her robes, she pulls out a blindingly radiant gem and presses it into his palm. Hold on to this. Making it to the holy grounds is just step one. Our God will put you through the ringer. But honestly, I know you will crush it. Stay safe out there. Securing the glowing artifact in his grip, Ketal shoots her a firm, appreciative nod. Good looking out. For the record, the name is Maria Hashian Kyuja, monarch of the Leaf Tribe. Who might you be? A cocky smirk spreads across his face. Just Ketal, he shoots back. Your friendly neighborhood barbarian. Fast forward a bit. Our boy is absolutely tearing through the woods, launching himself across insane distances with every single leap. Before long, the massive borders of the Barkan sector loom right in front of him. Welcome to the Gehenta Kingdom. Down at the main checkpoint, the sentries practically jump out of their skin as a deafening, thunderous boom echoes out, instantly followed by a massive, terrifying energy spike barreling straight for their position. The commanding officer's blood runs entirely cold. Ring the alarm. Get every single man out here right now. Boom. The earth shatters into a massive crater as Ketal crashes down like an absolute meteor, sending a blinding cloud of dirt and rocks blasting everywhere. The captain is utterly shell-shocked, his jaw basically on the floor. What kind of monster? Brushing off the dust, Ketal casually throws up a hand. Yo, you guys run security around here? Every single guard instantly clutches their swords for dear life, sweating bullets. One dude mutters under his breath, wait, did this guy seriously just cause all that chaos? Beside him, another sentry almost loses his mind, noticing the iconic silver hair and that brutal, massive scar ripped across his torso. Holy crap, that is the Ashen Barbarian. The moment Ketal inches closer, a dozen blades snap right at his throat. Take one more step and you are completely dead. Unfazed, the gray-haired warrior just shrugs. Chill out. I am not looking for a fight. I just need a quick chat. Gulping down his fear, a soldier manages to squeak out. Then what exactly are you doing here? Without missing a beat, Ketal just points a finger straight at the massive iron doors. The frontline guard squints, looking completely lost. What is that gesture? Are you seriously gesturing at the front gates? I am trying to come inside and check out your city. Ketal drops casually. The sentry's brain practically short-circuits. Bro, excuse me? Cut to a heavily locked-down interrogation room. The base commander glares right through Ketal from across a wooden desk. So let me get this straight. You are literally just passing through? Honestly, I am hoping to crash here for a bit. Ketal shrugs, completely unbothered by the timeline. The officer aggressively drums his fingers against the wood. State your name. Ketal. The captain leans in. You got any IDs? Anyone on the inside who can actually back up your story? The barbarian simply shakes his head no. But then, a light bulb goes off the token. Milena slipped him back in the day. Her exact voice plays on a loop in his memory. Flash this to the Akasha Syndicate, assuming you actually survived that frozen wasteland. Digging through his pouch, he slams the intricately carved emblem right onto the table. Will this cover my VIP pass? The commander's eyes instantly lock onto the shiny object. That is the official seal of the Akasha bloodline. Ketal flexes, laying out the facts. Handed straight to me by one of their actual heirs. The officer slowly leans back in his chair, mind blown. Wait, Akasha? As in the wildly wealthy trading empire operating out of the Dinian kingdom? He nervously scratches his jaw. Word on the street is they sent a massive expedition up to the frozen tundra a few years back. Apparently, their overall power leveled up big time after new management took over. So, does this shiny piece of metal officially clear my background check? Ketal questions, eager to wrap this up. It definitely passes the vibe check. No forgeries here, the commander groans. But since it is totally out of our jurisdiction, I cannot 100% verify your status. Taking a second to plot his next move, the guy finally caves. Whatever, it works. You get a temporary visa, but there is a major catch. Ketal arches a single brow. Hit me with it. You are going to squad up with some other guys, raid a local dungeon, and prove you are not some undercover psycho trying to ruin my city. A cocky grin flashes across Ketal's face. Bro, that is literally child's play. The officer slams his hands on the desk, cutting off the attitude. Do not celebrate just yet. Rule number 2. Once you clear the boss room, you are going to debrief me on every single tiny detail of what went down inside. Ketal catches the drift instantly. Absolute galaxy brain move force a bunch of sketchy strangers to babysit each other, cross-reference their stories, and instantly bust whoever is lying. Clearing his throat awkwardly, the official pivots the conversation. Off topic, but are you seriously a savage from the wastelands? Ketal does not even blink. 100%. The man just shakes his head in pure disbelief. Never met a wild man who talks like you do. I honestly thought your entire bloodline was basically a bunch of brainless brutes. Pushing away from the table, the commander officially wraps up the interrogation. We are done here. Get moving. Meanwhile, over in the dusty holding area, we got Alejandro Tyrannus, a dude basically role-playing as a sacred paladin, stomping around, throwing a massive tantrum. Why on earth am I being forced to raid with a filthy scam artist who literally robs innocent people blind? Kicking his feet up, the rogue Cassian Hawk flashes a toxic smirk. Aw, is someone still crying because a different pickpocket stole all his lunch money? Taking your massive rage out on me, Grandpa? Alejandro's eyes literally look ready to shoot lasers. You absolute street rat. Watch your mouth when speaking to a divine warrior. Cassian gives him a slow, incredibly disrespectful up and down look. Oh please. A divine warrior rocking gear that looks like it got chewed up by a garbage disposal? Newsflash. If you were actually legit, you would not be stuck in this dump. Stop coping, man. You are just a homeless merc exactly like me. We are both just bottom tier trash. Alejandro smashed his palm against the table, rattling the wood. Run that back. You seriously think that tin can you call armor is going to save your life? Casson let out a mocking scoff, fully ready to throw hands. But before things went left, a quiet voice sliced right through the heavy vibe. Drop it. Hayes, their squad's priestess of Kushia, physically blocked them, looking completely stressed out. We literally have a whole dungeon to clear together, and you guys are already beefing. Right on cue, the guard captain strolled into the room. This raid needs a 4-person minimum. You're getting one more squad mate. Hayes squeezed her hands together in prayer. Please, just let this guy be normal. The captain smirked. See for yourself. He just pulled up. The door swung open, and Cadell ducked inside. The trio instantly froze, their jaws practically hitting the floor in pure shock. Looming over the room, Cadell scanned the tiny humans in front of him. So, you guys are my squad? He beamed with zero filter. Panic silently bounced between the three of them. Alejandro glared up at him, sweating. Dude is an absolute unit. Hayes tilted her head, visibly terrified. Is he actually human? Casson narrowed his eyes, practically choking on the insane aura radiating off this absolute giant. Sup? Cadell flashed a goofy grin. The captain awkwardly cleared his throat. Get to know each other. I'll give you guys a minute. Cadell took the lead. I am Cadell, barbarian class. His intense gaze locked onto the rogue. Who are you? Cason? The rogue muttered, sounding totally intimidated. Cadell pivoted to the knight. And you? Alejandro Tyrannus, the heavily armored guy, barked, trying to sound tough. Oh, you use holy magic? Cadell tilted his head, genuinely curious. Alejandro immediately broke eye contact. Not quite. I'm a unique type of holy knight. I literally cannot use it. Hayes hesitantly stepped up next. I serve Kushia, the deity of lies and trickery. Cadell blinked in confusion. Wait, then why isn't your class officially verified? You literally have a god. Her vibe instantly dropped. Because my deity is, basically cancelled by the public. With the awkward icebreakers out of the way, the captain walked back in. If you're all set, roll out. The newly formed squad headed out, the dead silence between them so thick you could cut it with a knife. Pulling up to the raid location, an NPC guard pointed toward a massive, creepy stone cave that dropped down 3 solid floors. The mobs inside are straight up undead. Your mission, wipe them out and secure the family crest. Cadell immediately locked eyes with Casson. Drop the game plan before we push. Casson swallowed hard. Yes, sir. Cadell just laughed. Chill with the sir. We're homies now. Casson gave a quick nod and started cooking up the strat. Cadell and our tank, Alejandro, will hold down the front line. I'll scout ahead for rigged traps. Priestess, you stay in the back line and spam your buffs. Say less. Cadell agreed instantly, leaving Casson secretly mind-blown that the giant actually listened. Alright, let's get it. Cadell hyped them up, charging straight into the terrifying pitch-black abyss. Inside, the dark hallways felt like a literal maze. 0 traps, 0 locked doors, just pure, creepy silence. Casson scowled, his spidey senses tingling. Way too quiet. He suddenly threw a fist up, signaling a hard stop. Mob incoming. Cadell squinted hard into the darkness. Bro, there is literally nothing there. But then Casson pointed straight down. Scattered bone shards, skeletons. Trigger their aggro radius, and they wake up. Casson felt sick to his stomach, realizing the captain totally set them up. This wasn't some basic tutorial run. It was a literal death trap to wipe out unwanted foreigners. Skeletons, huh? Cadell muttered, sounding totally unfazed. Alejandro gripped his weapon, sweating bullets. These things are busted. Hack off an arm. They keep coming. Plus, their bone density gives them crazy high defense stats. This raid just went to nightmare difficulty. Casson snapped back into leader mode. Priestess, charge up your mana. Alejandro, shields up. Cadell, brace yourself. Focus fire on the cervical spine. Spam your attacks on the neck if you have to. That is their only critical hit zone. Cadell mentally nodded, impressed by the rogue's shot calling. The second they crossed the invisible line, a skeletal hand burst through the dirt, its hollow eye sockets glowing an eerie blue. The entire squad braced for a brutal boss fight, But Cadell? He literally just flicked his wrist. Crack. One completely effortless backhand absolutely vaporized the monster's skull into shrapnel. The entire mob collapsed like a Jenga tower. Cadell just dusted the bone ash off his massive palms like it was nothing. Who's next? Alejandro, Hayes, and Cassin stood there, glitching out, completely paralyzed by shock. Cadell just chuckled, pointing out that Cassin's strat was totally spot on. Just pop the head off, and its HP drops to 0. Cassin let out a nervous, terrified laugh, desperately trying to explain that was literally not what he meant. These mobs aren't just built out of normal human remains. Dungeon skeletons are reinforced with magic, making them basically bulletproof. Even a top-tier, max-level swordsman would struggle to one-shot these things. Doing it without an aura blade? Literally impossible. Plus, this specific mob was hardcore buffed by the dungeon's raw mana. The only legit meta to clear these mobs is grinding down their neck bones with repeated, heavy strikes just to snap the spine. So to bypass chopping and just straight up nuke a reinforced skull into literal dust? That defies all logic. He totally knew their barbarian was jacked. But he never factored in this level of completely broken, overpowered strength. Cassin was genuinely questioning if Cadell was secretly a raid boss in a human skin suit. The monster was reduced to literal sandbox dirt, while the trio kept staring at Cadell like he was a glitch in the Matrix. Turning back, the giant casually suggested they keep pushing the floor. Sweating bullets, the squad scrambled to fall in line, screaming, "Right behind you, boss!" Waving a hand, Cadell chuckled, "Yo, chill. We don't need to speedrun this." Cassin snapped a frantic military-grade salute, while Hayes and Alejandro huddled close, basically just praying this walking natural disaster wouldn't accidentally end their lives. Pushing deeper into the gloom, Ketil suddenly pauses, his eyes locking onto a solitary skull resting on the cold stone. Kasim barely gets the question out before the ground literally erupts. Bones violently snap together, spawning an absolute army of the undead. Hayes screams as Kasim and Alessandro instantly grip their weapons, bracing for a massacre. But Ketil? Bro just casually turns around and asks for a solid. The squad looks completely utterly baffled while he casually drops that he wants to solo this entire mob. Why? Just to test out a little theory. Too stunned to argue, the crew just gives him the green light. Giving a polite nod, Ketil closes the distance, strolling up to the nearest undead like he is taking a walk in the park. The group watches in pure confusion as he kicks up a rusted blade. Ketil is genuinely geeking out, openly marveling at the magical mechanics keeping these bone bags intact. The monster launches itself forward, swinging its weapon with lethal force, but Ketil literally catches the steel between 2 fingers and shatters it like dry pasta. Taunting the creature about its next move, the skeleton doesn't back down. It yanks back its broken, jagged weapon, violently kicks off the dungeon wall, and dive bombs straight for our boy. The shattered blade slices downward, but Ketil simply shifts a fraction of an inch, letting it trim a single lock of his hair. A psycho grin spreads across his face. He dares the monster to try harder, right before clamping his hand around its bony wrist and crushing it into absolute powder. The severed skeletal hand clatters against the pavement. The undead creature stares at its missing limb in pure disbelief before shooting a death glare right back at him. Without missing a beat, the monster punts its dropped weapon into the air, spinning it perfectly before snatching it with its remaining left hand. Ketil is practically glowing with entertainment, praising the undead for knowing how to dual wield. The skeleton blindly rushes back in, rocking a brutal reverse grip, only for Ketil to snatch its remaining wrist and violently rip the entire arm out of its socket. The creature staggers backward, completely losing its footing, but somehow regains control. It lunges forward for one last, desperate strike, trying to impale Ketil with its jagged, broken stump. Ketil easily deflects and snaps the joint again, casually complimenting its battle IQ. Meanwhile, Hayes is watching this absolute menace play with his food, absolutely petrified. Alessandro and Kasim are sweating bullets too, witnessing what looks like pure sadistic torture. But in Ketil's mind, he is just doing a fun little science experiment. He starts ruthlessly batting the monster around while Kasim watches in utter horror. The skull finally pops off and rolls away, and Ketil just stares it down, roasting it for being totally useless without a body. Without a second thought, he brutally stomps the skull into dust, admitting he is having the time of his life. Pivoting back to the squad, he drops a polite apology for holding up the raid. A traumatized Kasim instantly stammers back, insisting he can take all the time he needs. Appreciating the patience, Ketil stands triumphantly over a fresh mound of bone dust, announcing he is totally geared up to keep pushing. The terrified trio immediately hit him with a "yes sir" and fall in line. They march until Ketil hits the brakes, right as Kasim points out their next checkpoint. Facing a creepy staircase leading down to floor number 2, they begin their descent while Kasim exhales a massive breath of relief, suggesting they seriously need to take a quick breather. Ketil glances back, processes the request, and totally agrees that a pit stop is the smartest play. Showing major respect, Kasim drops a quick bow of gratitude. We cut to Ketil chilling on the ground while the rest of the crew sits there suffocating in sheer, awkward silence. Breaking the tension, our overpowered protagonist admits he has a burning question about this underground labyrinth. Hayes bites, and Kettle sheepishly confesses that his actual knowledge about dungeon mechanics is basically zero. Trying to lighten the mood, Hayes reassures him that wanting to learn is a massive green flag. She admits she is not exactly a walking encyclopedia either, but offers to share what she knows. Ketil shows his appreciation, prompting her to ask what exactly is on his mind. Our boy points out a massive red flag, noting how suspiciously close this dangerous zone is to a civilian settlement. He questions if letting bloodthirsty beasts chill next door is a major security threat. Hayes jumps in, explaining that these creatures typically never leave their spawn zones. Sure, crazy anomalies happen, but the local authorities usually scout those threats and wipe them off the map before things get messy. Stepping into the lore drop, Kasim clears his throat and explains that these chaotic domains literally spawn from nature. Sometimes they form underground networks, while other times they shoot up as towering monoliths. But the wildest part? The vast majority of them magically pop up right next to major cities. Connecting the dots, Ketil realizes why they found this one so easily. Hayes breaks down the system. Whenever a new portal drops, the ruling noble scans its threat level immediately. From there, hired guns like mercenaries or royal guards are paid to totally wipe it out. Intrigued by the world building, Ketil leans in, asking if these death traps ever just spawn straight up inside a town square. Hayes confirms they never do, always keeping a respectful distance from civilization. Nodding along, he then gets straight to the point, asking if there is a massive payout for actually conquering these nightmare zones. Hayes nods, explaining the endgame mechanics. Reach the bottom floor, slaughter the final boss, and claim a massive pile of insane loot. Given how massive this specific raid is, she guarantees the final drop is going to be incredibly huge. Hearing this, Ketil bursts into laughter, remarking that this entire world operates exactly like a video game. Completely lost, she asks him to explain the gamer talk. Brushing it off as muttering, he smoothly pivots, stating he has one final puzzle piece to figure out. They give him the floor. With a deadpan stare, Ketil simply asks who exactly is building these death traps. Hayes looks utterly lost, demanding to know what he is talking about. She reiterates that these domains are born from Mother Nature, zero creators involved. But Ketil completely shuts that logic down, pointing out way too many suspicious details for that to be true. Exhibit A, they conveniently spawn right outside major cities, practically begging human adventurers to come inside. Showing up next to towns, baiting greedy humans with shiny rewards. For something supposedly random and natural, the whole setup screams deliberate trap. The moment those words leave his mouth, a massive realization hits Hayes' brain. It was such an accepted fact of life that literally no one in this world ever stopped to realize how incredibly fake it all seems. Kaysen's mind is totally blown. He never even second-guessed this stuff, it was just the absolute law of their universe. How is a literal barbarian out here, dropping philosophical bombs on the very fabric of their world? In the lore, these guys are supposed to be brainless, bloodthirsty savages, completely dead inside, lacking a single ounce of empathy that is literally common knowledge across the entire realm. But looking at the absolute unit standing in front of them, throwing all that basic logic out the window, yeah, calling this dude a typical barbarian is a massive stretch. Ketil casually remarks how fascinating this all is, snapping Kaysen straight out of his existential crisis. The big guy then checks in, asking the squad if they have caught their breath. The crew scrambles to their feet, nodding in agreement. Ketil gives the green light to push forward, and with a quick thumbs up from Hayes, the party marches deeper into the unknown. Pushing further into the second floor's eerie shadows, Ketil's sharp eyes catch a glint in the darkness, a lone chest chilling right there on the stone floor. When Ketil points it out, Kassen instantly recognizes it as a dungeon treasure drop, a sweet, sweet reward for surviving the maze. The loot is theirs for the taking, assuming they can actually pop the lid open. But talking is cheap, and cracking a top-tier lock like this would normally require a cracked master rogue. We are talking about elite-level lockpicking stats, and an assassin with that kind of crazy skill level definitely would not be slumming it in a low-tier dungeon like this. Basically, they have zero choice but to ditch the loot, but Ketil, completely unfazed, just turns to Kassen and tells him to crack it. Kassen mentally flatlines, internally screaming about why this monster is putting him on the spot. Ketil drops the most flawless logic. It is a treasure chest, and Kassen is literally their rogue. Sweating bullets, Kassen stammers that technically, he is not wrong. Before the poor guy can even finish his excuse, Ketil shuts him down, firmly stating that dealing with loot is exactly what a rogue is built for. So, obviously, it is entirely his job to handle it. Kassen gulps, admitting the logic is totally sound, except for one massive, glaring issue. If he actually possessed those kinds of insane skills, he would not be stuck doing grunt work in the first place. A bottom-tier scrub like him entirely ignored by the main guild, has absolutely zero business messing with advanced mechanisms. But he physically cannot bring himself to drop the truth bomb, especially when Catal is staring at him with pure, hype-filled anticipation. If he confesses his uselessness right now, that glowing excitement is going to instantly morph into terrifying disappointment. His brain instantly conjures a nightmare scenario of Catal deeming him completely worthless, and the brutal memory of those skeletons being violently pulverized flashes through his mind. He definitely does not want to become bone dust today. While his soul is literally weeping in terror, he slaps on a painfully awkward smile and squeaks out that he will give it his best shot. We then cut to him, violently sweating over the lock. He mutters under his breath that failing this means his absolute demise. Meanwhile, Catal hovers right behind him, intensely watching like it is the most fascinating thing he has ever witnessed. Kaysen desperately scrubs through his memory banks, trying to recall the exact movements he watched other pros use back when he was just a glorified backpack. But his mind is completely blank. But pure survival instinct kicks in, and he realizes he has to gamble his literal life to unlock this memory. Bro's entire bloodline depends on this single moment. A sudden click echoes out, catching Kaysen totally off guard. Catal notices the rogue, trembling like a leaf, and leans in to see what just went down. Literal tears of absolute joy stream down Kaysen's face as he announces the lid just popped. Honestly, you cannot help but root for this guy. Hayes gasps in pure hype, mentioning how rumors claim only elite tier thieves could ever bypass dungeon traps, but witnessing it live proves he is actually goated. Catal gives an approving nod, praising the flawless execution. Still, in total shock, Kaysen stammers that cracking it felt completely impossible. Staring at his own trembling hands, trying to process what just occurred, he reflects on how he always thought he was grinding at maximum capacity just to survive. But standing right here, for the very first time, he starts realizing his past efforts were a total joke, seriously questioning if he was ever actually pushing his limits before today. Breaking the philosophical silence, Catal casually asks what the stash is actually worth. Hayes does the mental math, declaring that this single payout could fund a normal family for a solid month, and we are talking serious luxury, not just scraping by. Chuckling at the major win, Catal casually asks if the loot is really that stacked, before tossing the responsibility of bagging it straight to Kaysen. The rogue hits him with a crisp "yes sir," reaching in and pulling out a shining chalice. He stares deeply into the golden cup, completely hypnotized by the sheer drip. Suddenly, Catal barks his name, making the poor guy jump out of his skin and let out a hilarious shriek. The barbarian tilts his head, asking if he needs a hand. When Kaysen freezes up in pure panic, Catal genuinely starts worrying if the dude somehow injured himself. Frantically waving his hands, Kaysen aggressively denies doing anything suspicious, leaving the rest of the squad staring at him in total confusion. Fast forward a bit, as the crew treks deeper into the labyrinth, we see Kaysen lugging around a massive sack stuffed with premium dungeon loot. Suddenly, Catal throws his arm out, commanding a full halt. Skeletons have entered the chat, and the undead squad is glaring menacingly right back at them from the shadows. Counting the rattling skulls, there are exactly 4 targets. Catal calmly calls dibs on 3, and the entire team instantly clocks what he is planning. He straight up tells the trio that the final mob is entirely their responsibility. Kaysen grips his weapon, realizing this is a legitimate boss-level test. While Alejandro and Hayes immediately lock into combat mode, Catal confidently strides into the danger zone, and as the undead sentries fully snap out of their slumber, Kaysen shudders, muttering that watching literal bones snap together into walking nightmares never stops giving him massive creeps. The unholy quartet rises to their full, terrifying height. Catal shouts for everyone to brace themselves. A blinding golden energy surges around the trio as Hayes drops a massive support buff, and the barbarian immediately orders them to engage. Kaysen sprints in with zero hesitation, slicing fiercely at a skeletal neck, but the damage barely registers. Instantly, the rest of the bony mob swarms in to punish his push, but Catal swoops in like an absolute tank, snatching 3 of the monsters and dragging them away exactly as promised. He casually mentions that watching them fight is top-tier entertainment, and he refuses to step on their toes, stepping back to let the rookies secure their own victory. The remaining skeleton violently brings its blade crashing down, but Alejandro steps up, tanking the heavy blow perfectly with his shield. While the monster's weapon grinds against the steel, Kaysen parkours right off the dungeon wall, launching a devastating aerial ambush straight at its exposed spine. Catching the enemy completely off guard, Hayes seizes the opening and unleashes her Shadow of Confusion spell, hypercharging Alejandro with a massive buff that leaves him radiating intense golden energy. He explodes off the line, his weapon tearing straight through the skeleton's throat. The undead creature crashes hard onto its kneecaps. Plot twist, the bone just splintered. That bony freak actually starts cackling, hyped that it survived the strike. But then, Kettle starts chuckling right back at it, Turns out, this dude already wiped out the other 3 mobs in the blink of an eye. He admits he is genuinely impressed, getting to witness a squad's ultimate abilities up close, flexing about how rare this is. Then, without missing a beat, he completely pulverizes a skull in his bare grip. With the trash mob swept aside, he announces he just wants to sit back and watch the show. Taking the cue, Kason launches a brutal follow-up strike. The squad suddenly pieces it together. Kettle is totally testing their limits right now. That leftover skeleton? Bro looks genuinely terrified, and absolutely baffled as the trio shadows over it like sleep paralysis demons. The hunters know the stakes. If they show even a single drop of fear, it is game over. In their heads, Kettle might actually end them if they flop. So they go absolute goblin mode, jumping the monster and absolutely wrecking it. Cut to the shattered skull, rolling across the dirt. Alessandro collapses, totally gassed, while the other 2 slump down right beside him, completely drained of stamina. Kettle smirks, confirming that anyone rolling with Mina had to be built different. Fast forward, the crew descends into the 3rd level. It is an absolute mobfest of skeletons down here. The horde is massive, but with Kettle taking the vanguard, they plow through the undead like it is nothing. Expressions dead serious. The squad finally breaches the deepest, darkest zone of the raid. Looming before them is a solitary figure chilling on a massive throne. Enter the area boss, the Skeleton Knight. Hayes starts losing her mind, panicking about how a mob this high tier spawned here. Kettle just tilts his head, wondering aloud if this guy hits differently than the rest. They warn him it is insanely overpowered. Hayes drops the lore, explaining this specific variant comes fully strapped with a giant broadsword and a heavy shield. Basically, unless you are a knight-class brawler, you are catching an instant game over. To them, this boss is straight up untouchable. Kettle casually asks about the penalty for dodging the fight and backing out. Hayes stammers that they would have to ping headquarters for an official retreat order. If the guild deems it too dangerous, they get a free pass to bounce. Hearing this, a wicked grin spreads across Kettle's face. Hayes blanks out as she watches him step directly toward the danger zone. Kettle coldly states that clapping this boss is the only logical move. Right as the undead knight's eyes flare to life, the massive boss rises from its throne, prompting Kettle to geek out over how perfectly intact its structure is. The monster instantly drops into a lethal combat pose. Hayes clocks the threat, screaming for everyone to brace themselves while throwing up a massive magical shield just as the boss unleashes a devastating area of effect sweep. Fractures immediately spiderweb across her defense. Hayes is sweating buckets, struggling to hold on right before the massive sword absolutely obliterates her magical wall. Alessandro instantly tanks the hit, slamming his shield down to cover the squad. The sheer kinetic force of the strike sends him crashing hard onto the pavement. Kettle just watches with peak curiosity. Meanwhile, a rattled Alessandro questions how a single swipe possessed that much raw damage, swearing this boss is way out of their league. The knight locks its hollow gaze dead onto Kettle and blitzes forward like a freight train. Closing the distance in a split second, Kettle delivers a single, earth-shattering punch right to its chest cavity. He literally deletes its entire torso, reducing the invincible boss to a pile of dusty ash on the dungeon floor. The trio is absolutely paralyzed, jaws practically on the floor, while Kettle just casually dusts off his knuckles like it was nothing. He drops a deadpan. Wait, that was it? Leaving the squad sweating bullets, right before his eyes lock onto a hidden loot box. He tags Casein in, who looks completely clueless, asking if the rogue can pick it, but Casein instantly shoots the idea down. The lock's tier is way above his pay grade, and he totally lacks the stats to crack it, making Kettle sigh in pure disappointment. Casein mumbles about having to ditch the loot, but before the dude can even finish his sentence, our barbarian is already making his move. Bam! Kettle just straight up obliterates the chest with a single punch. Honestly, at this point, I have zero clue why the party is still acting shocked. Flexing the raw brute force, Kettle claims the drops are way better like this, tossing the inventory management duty back to the rogue. Casein nods, completely mind-blown that someone just physically pulverized a locked crate, because seriously, if he was gonna Hulk smash it anyway, why on earth did he even ask him to pick it? Honestly, valid question. Suddenly, a blinding flash engulfs the squad as they step out of the raid zone. A massive shockwave rattles the ground, prompting Kettle to demand what's happening, and when the crew whips their heads around, the entire rift simply vanishes into thin air. Casein drops the lore that 100%ing a zone makes it permanently collapse. This implies they missed 0 hidden chambers, which gets Kettle hyped, asking if secret rooms are actually real, and the rogue confirms they are super rare. Kettle cracks a massive grin, calling that a fun challenge, while Casein internally screams about what kind of absolute psycho he's partying with. Cut back to the checkpoint officer. The dude is shook, refusing to believe they speedran the zone that fast. He coughs awkwardly, pressing for a status update, to which Kettle just smirks and calls it a total blast. Accepting the flex, the captain greenlights their city access, ordering the whole squad to line up and pass through the gates single file. A debrief confirms 0 red flags during the run. The head guard then turns to a female subordinate, questioning if they should seriously approve this. Letting a wild barbarian roam their streets feels sketchy, but she hesitates and mutters that it should be okay, though her voice completely drops off at the end. The vibe definitely shifts whenever Kettle is the main topic. You see, this whole screening process isn't just about farming dungeons, it's a hidden vibe check. The real meta is filtering out toxic players before they enter the city limits. Stepping up, Cassian vouches for the giant, swearing he isn't a griefing type. The captain has to admit that despite wielding absolutely broken stats, the brute never once friendly fired or turned on his own squad. He's basically built different from your average savage. Kettle even chimes in, hyping up Cassian for carrying the utility role and disabling the death traps. He even credits the rogue for unlocking the loot box. He then gives major props to Alessandro for tanking the front line and praises Hayes for her massive support. Her healing buffs were a total game changer during the boss fight. The captain is absolutely stunned by this teamwork, calling the whole dynamic insanely rare. Usually, randoms matched through forced matchmaking just trash talk each other. Shaking off the shock, the officer finally hands over their clear bonuses. Normally, these corrupt NPCs would skim a little tax off the top, but this dude absolutely does not want to test his luck against Kettle's wrath. The barbarian insists on splitting the gold completely down the middle, but the terrified trio instantly rejects the bag. Kettle tilts his head, genuinely confused. He drops the logic that since they all grinded together, the loot must be equalized. Trapped by his intense aura, the squad has zero choice but to accept. Then he hits them with the classic, "Let's grab a pint" to celebrate their flawless run. As the group starts marching toward the inner walls, Kettle is radiating pure golden retriever energy, while his teammates look like they are walking to the gallows. Meanwhile, the captain is still processing the math. One-shotting an elite skeleton knight? That requires god-tier DPS. This guy is scaling at a high-ranking knight's tier, or maybe even higher. He is definitely not your standard aggro mob. He's a legendary anomaly, a glitch in the system. The officer's eyes widen as he figures out his next move. Barking orders at the rookies to hold the line, he abandons his post and instantly sprints straight toward the city lord's massive manor. 3 sharp knocks echo through the grand hallway, a deep voice grants access, and the out-of-breath captain bursts in, facing an annoyed ruler. Enter Luke Varkin, the ultimate boss of this territory. The sweaty officer immediately snaps a salute, declaring an urgent briefing for the man in charge. He drops the bomb that a rogue barbarian has infiltrated their turf. Luke just raises an eyebrow, asking if his guard actually gave this guy a green light. The officer defends his call, claiming he didn't detect any hostile intent. Luke leans forward, demanding to know the issue, and the captain whispers one word, "overpowered," like literally game-breakingly strong. The Lord scoffs, asking for raw numbers, and the guard reveals the brute soloed a heavily armored skeleton knight with one single hit. Luke's arrogant mask instantly shatters, because that specific mob is a complete death sentence for anyone below elite status. Nuke-shotting that kind of boss is insane. Plus, the lore states these tribal warriors are supposed to be brainless tanks, meatheads who just spam heavy attacks. The Lord questions if they are dealing with an S-class threat, and the captain grimly confirms the massive odds. Pushing further, Luke asks if this anomaly could be even more busted. The sweating guard swallows hard, admitting that his power ceiling is completely unreadable. The ruler rubs his temples, realizing that having a walking weapon of mass destruction casually chilling in his city is going to be a monumental migraine. He orders his subordinate to drag the giant to his estate as soon as possible. The captain panics, questioning if provoking him is a smart play, but the Lord cuts him off. Letting an unpredictable nuke wander the streets is a massive liability. He needs to size up this supposed legend face to face just to sleep at night. He demands absolute visual confirmation of the threat. The guard desperately warns that things could turn bloody, but Luke simply flashes a dark, fearless grin. The knight materializes right beside him out of thin air. The captain flinches, absolutely shook that he didn't even sense the dude's presence. Luke drops the question, what's his read on the guy? The knight just scoffs, calling him a basic barbarian with a bit of raw muscle. Nothing but a brainless brute. Against his elite blade skills, personally trained by the Grand Swordmaster, the meathead stands zero chance. Luke just nods, ordering his captain to drag the barbarian in for a little one-on-one chat. Cut back to the tavern. Kettle is absolutely demolishing his grub like a starved beast, while his party watches in pure, unfiltered disgust. Dude is eating like a feral hog. He slams his massive mug down, hyping up the god-tier food and chill vibes, flexing that the whole tab is on him. He tells them to go crazy and feast. They just force out these super awkward giggles before Kettle suddenly pivots, asking Alessandro if he's legit a paladin. Alessandro hits him with a hesitant yes. Kettle instantly zeroes in, asking what kind of holy magic he packs since he didn't cast a single spell back there. During the entire dungeon raid, he was basically dead weight. Alessandro sweats, capping hard about being a trainee whose powers just haven't quote-unquote awakened yet. Kettle totally buys it, sighing that he really wanted to see some flashy magic. Alessandro nervously clears his throat, and Kettle immediately switches targets to Hayes, grilling her about her deity. He wants to know if her church is local. Hayes gets super defensive, admitting her god isn't exactly pulling in 5-star reviews from the public. Since she literally worships the god of lies and deceit, society kind of canceled them. Her anxiety spikes, but she finally bites the bullet. She drops the golden question, just how cracked is his power level? The boys freeze up, but Kettle? He just innocently tilts his head, calculating his exact rank. He admits he's totally fresh out of his village, literally a noob to this world, and genuinely asks where a skeleton knight lands on the power scale. They hit him with the lore drop. You gotta be at least second tier to survive it, and a top-tier warrior to one-shot it like he casually did. Kettle is mind-blown that such a weak mob is considered high-level. Right on cue, a trembling waiter scurries over, begging them to wrap it up because they're closing. Our boy is super chill about it, apologizing and getting ready to dip. He asks if the squad wants to hang out later, and they universally speedrun their excuses, claiming they are booked and busy to dodge him at all costs. Kettle hits them with a genuine pout, bummed out that the party is splitting. He bids them an emotional farewell, totally hoping they cross paths again for another epic raid. But let's be real, every single one of them would rather touch grass than ever see this psycho again. Later, Kettle secures a premium in-room and absolutely collapses onto the mattress. He groans in pure bliss. This is literally the first real bed he's touched since spawning in this universe. Having fat stacks of cash is a major win. That dungeon loot is definitely paying off. Compared to freezing his body off in those brutal snowy plains, this place is straight up heaven on earth. It took an eternity to finally grind his way to civilization. Now, he's staring at the ceiling, plotting his next massive move. The dude craves that main character energy. He wants the ultimate fantasy experience. We're talking elven sanctuaries, towering magic academies, the bustling royal capital, every single RPG trope in the book. He is practically vibrating with excitement to explore it all. He blacks out hard. Flash forward, morning sunlight blasts through the window, waking him up as he hilariously wipes sleep drool off his chin. Boom. A heavy knock rattles the door. The captain awkwardly apologizes for ruining his sleep schedule, and Kettle demands to know what's up. Clearing his throat, the guy drops a bombshell. The regional lord is demanding a face-to-face. Kettle's eyebrows shoot up. The VIP of the entire zone wants him? That's a massive plot twist, but he is totally game. He hops up, completely unbothered, asking if they are rolling out right this second. He tells the guard to hold up a second so he can throw on some decent drip. Watching him casually gear up, the captain is internally screaming, "Is this seriously the lethal monster they were warned about?" He's way too compliant. Soon, they are trekking through the bustling streets. Kettle is rubbernecking like a total tourist. Since he pulled up pitch black last night, he completely missed the vibe of the city. But soaking in the daytime aesthetics? Absolute perfection. A massive grin spreads across his face as he fanboys over the architecture, swearing it feels exactly like spawning into a virtual reality masterpiece. Meanwhile, the captain is stressed out of his mind, sweating over their tight deadline. He literally drags Kettle through the alleyways just to shut down the sightseeing tour. Finally, they reach the massive estate. The guard announces the target is secured. Luke grants them access. The heavy oak doors swing wide, and the Lord immediately offers a welcoming handshake. Playing the ultimate diplomat, Luke introduces himself as the head honcho of the region. Kettle matches his energy, returning the greeting without missing a beat. He drops the formal title like a pro, presenting himself as Kettle the Barbarian, while executing a flawlessly respectful bow. Luke's brain practically short-circuits. A barbarian bowing? That is a glitch in the Matrix. Those savage warriors literally never bow to anyone. In their culture, pure strength is the only law. But Luke just internally shrugs, figuring if you survive long enough, you eventually witness the impossible. Amused, he praises the savage for actually having some class and invites him to sit. Kettle happily crashes into the chair right across from him. His eyes dart everywhere, scanning the insane luxury of the office. He outwardly gushes, geeking out over how incredibly badass the castle interior looks. Dropping some lore, he admits he's been obsessed with forts since childhood. Then, he locks eyes with the elite guard, casually mentioning he used to roleplay as a knight back in the day. Seeing a fully armored legend in the flesh? Mind-blowing. He stares deeply at the dude, his gaze totally innocent and overflowing with hardcore curiosity. But the knight peers back and freezes. That isn't childish wonder shining in the barbarian's eyes. It is pure, suffocating bloodlust. And there is absolutely zero mistaking it. Leaking that kind of killer intent right in front of the boss? Oh, this dude is absolutely begging for a brutal beatdown. The armored guard straight up calls him a dead man walking, but Luke quickly shuts that down. The noble makes it crystal clear he only brought our guy here for one very specific reason. Just a quick little background check, and he's free to bounce. Kettle doesn't even blink, casually telling the Lord to shoot his shot and ask away. Luke drops the million-dollar question. Where exactly did you crawl out from? Kettle smirks, knowing damn well that answer carries some serious weight in this room. He paints a picture of a freezing wasteland, a realm buried entirely under frost and endless ice. The absolute shock hits them like a truck as the pieces finally click together. The white snowfield. Their jaws practically hit the floor as they realize the myth, the absolute unit of a legendary barbarian, is breathing the exact same air as them. Luke isn't buying it easily, but our boy just shrugs. It was a freezing hellhole, and frankly, he couldn't care less if they believe his origin story. Pivoting hard, the noble changes tactics. He needs to gauge the exact threat level sitting in his study. Just how ridiculously overpowered is this outlander? But Kettle completely flips the script. He has zero clue how the power scaling actually works in this new continent, prompting Luke to shoot a sly, knowing glance at his personal guard. The bodyguard catches the vibe immediately. Taking the bait, the VIP offers up a friendly little exhibition match between the two heavyweights. Throwing some heavy bags of coin into the mix, he sweetens the deal. Kettle questions the rules of engagement, and the boss clarifies they aren't aiming for fatal blows today. Just a casual flex of skills, nothing crazy. Hearing this, our barbarian literally bursts out laughing, totally down for the hype, which completely startles the wealthy aristocrat. Internally, our guy is completely geeking out, throwing down with a legit, armored-up warrior in an actual magical realm. This is peak entertainment. We are talking about elites radiating pure magical energy here. This is his ultimate golden ticket to witness that insane fantasy combat up close and personal. He is absolutely buzzing with adrenaline. Meanwhile, Luke's knuckles turn white as he aggressively grips his chair, sweating bullets and stereotyping the absolute heck out of our boy. To them, no amount of manners can mask a meathead's primal thirst for violence. Honestly, the noble and his guard are straight up shivering over a harmless chuckle. That feral energy alone sends shivers down their spines. Cutting to the grand arena, the Lord takes his fancy, elevated seat in the high-up spectator box. Down in the dirt, our two warriors lock eyes in a total main event stare-down. The boss crosses his fingers for a clean fight, and the starting gong aggressively echoes out. Mr. Armor immediately starts yapping, telling the savage to feel blessed for witnessing his godly blade skills. Kettle? He's practically bouncing on his heels with excitement. Seeing his opponent this chill absolutely triggers the swordsman. He vows to brutally demonstrate the insane, undeniable gap in their power levels. Exploding forward, the dude ignites a blinding, neon green aura around his body. He mocks our boy, winding up a massive, lethal strike. The weapon literally splits its projection, sending a trio of deadly glowing arcs right at the barbarian's skull. Our protagonist is just baffled like, why on earth are there extra blades popping out? Thinking it's just a cheap visual trick, he weaves through the glowing steel, instantly realizing those phantom slashes carry actual, heavy kinetic weight. Every single magic blade is solidly real. He side-eyes the so-called elite warrior, utterly underwhelmed by this overhyped, flashy technique. Smug as ever, the tin can assumes he's got the upper hand, genuinely thinking the outlander is desperately fighting for his life, just playing defense. He gives a sarcastic little golf clap for the evasion skills, before lunging back into the danger zone to secure his victory. Without even breaking a sweat, our boy casually lifts a single hand and literally flicks the incoming weapon. The hyped-up magical steel shatters like cheap glass. The swordsman completely short-circuits, completely dumbfounded. Then, Kettle presses a massive palm flat against the dude's breastplate and terrifyingly tightens his grip. He literally crumples the heavy metal like it's a flimsy soda can. One effortless toss later, the armor caves in completely, sending the elite warrior hacking up crimson. Up in the stands, the noble's jaw absolutely drops to the floor. His prized fighter didn't just crash his impact, completely demoed the arena's solid stone boundary. The impact trench is insane, ripping up the arena floor like butter. Honestly, that dude is gonna need some serious ice packs after skidding across that rough pavement. The boss's brain is totally frying. One-tapping a high-ranking magical warrior, he is absolutely terrified of the walking nuke he just invited into his territory. Swiveling around, our absolute unit of a main character genuinely asks if playtime is already over. The VIP up top is literally frozen, completely robbed of his vocabulary. Having a full-blown internal meltdown, the guy violently clears his throat. He stammers out a weak agreement, his mind heavily reeling over that effortless, one-hit knockout. The dude isn't just strong, he's completely cracked. And the scariest part? That was just a casual tap. His actual ceiling is entirely uncharted territory. An anomaly like this could literally flip the entire continent's power dynamic overnight. The noble realizes he urgently needs to escalate this to one of the realm's apex predators. We are talking about the absolute top-tier titans, the Swordmasters. With one scheduled to visit soon, Luke highly bets this insane barbarian will definitely catch the legend's eye. Oh, quick setting change. Guys, the noble retreated to his private study. Suddenly, a gravelly voice echoes out, playfully asking if someone was gossiping about him. Whipping around, Luke spots his window thrown wide open, and a crusty old veteran casually chilling in his space. The Lord just lets out a heavy, exhausted sigh. He drags the old man for his incredibly creepy ninja entries. The old-timer just smirks, claiming an ancient legend has got to keep himself entertained somehow. Leaning in, the legendary geezer demands all the spicy details on this new anomaly. Enter Kane, an absolute monster who actually holds the prestigious Swordmaster title. Scrambling out of his fancy seat, the boss practically trips over himself, showing respect. He bows deeply, aggressively thanking the powerhouse for popping in unannounced. Dropping a heavy Lord Kane, the noble stays locked in a deep bow while the old man just burns holes into him. Meanwhile, our trashed warrior finally regains consciousness. Healing up in the medical bay with his gear completely shredded, the beat-down guard gets a visitor. The boss walks in checking on him, and the dude insists he'll bounce back in no time. The wounded guy begs for forgiveness, but the old legend suddenly steps out from the shadows. Kane completely shuts that down, stating he's the one at fault for training such a scrub of a student. Kane stares down at his battered student, completely mind-blown that some random, unknown barbarian absolutely wrecked him. But looking closer at the wounds, something doesn't add up. There isn't a single scratch on the kid's actual skin. The student's high-tier armor is literally pulverized into dust, looking like it took a direct hit from a cannon. Honestly, Kane fully expected to be looking at a corpse right now. Yet, aside from his gear being shredded into rags, the guy is perfectly fine. It clicks. This wasn't a brutal beatdown, it was a massive flex of mercy. Kane's eyes widen as he realizes this dude isn't just some brainless brute swinging a club. He's a tactical genius with terrifyingly precise control over his strength. Kane admits that this barbarian's power scales way beyond a standard knight's tier. To hold back that flawlessly in a real fight, the guy has to be totally superhuman. Hearing this, Luke and the nearby guard completely freeze in shock. Luke awkwardly clears his throat, hesitating before asking the million-dollar question. How does this wild powerhouse stack up against Kane himself? Kane smirks. Sure, the barbarian might hit like a freight train, but Kane is a literal sword master. Raw stats don't equal victory. He confidently claims the savage wouldn't stand a chance in a one-on-one. Luke nervously chuckles, hyping him up, until Kane drops another bombshell. The craziest part? The barbarian didn't even use a drop of aura. Generating that kind of explosive damage with pure, raw muscle defies all basic logic. Kane narrows his eyes, questioning if this absurd strength is just the standard baseline for warriors hailing from the freezing white wasteland. Luke admits he thought it was all cap at first, but now, this guy has to be the mythical savage from the old tales. Kane falls silent, piecing it together. He recalls those dark rumors whispering about a god-tier human dominating the frozen tundra. Or worse, maybe he isn't human at all, but a literal raid boss wearing human skin. But Kane shakes his head, instantly shutting that theory down. Confused, Luke asks why. Kane points out the obvious. A real monster would have turned that student into a red smear on the pavement, not spared his life. Still, the timing is super suspicious. Why would a wasteland legend suddenly spawn in their territory out of nowhere? Noticing Kane spacing out, Luke asks if everything is cool. Kane brushes it off, blaming his headache on the Emperor constantly handing down the most bizarre, cryptic side quests imaginable. He tells Luke to drop the subject. Luke nods, trying to keep up. Suddenly, Kane shifts gears, demanding to know if their mysterious guest is still around. Luke confirms the big guy hasn't checked out yet. Hearing this, Kane spins around, deciding it's time to confront this anomaly face to face. Meanwhile, the Knight Captain links up with Kettle, asking for his next move. Kettle shrugs. The local lord already paid out a massive bag for the duel victory. The lord basically gave him VIP immunity, promising zero heat while he stays in the zone. Kettle admits his itinerary is completely blank right now, but he knows he desperately needs some kind of official identification. Trying to casually walk into restricted dungeons across different maps is going to flag him everywhere. Getting blocked at every single border gate sounds like a total nightmare. The captain strokes his chin, processing the barbarian's dilemma. He drops two options. Plan A, find a heavyweight VIP sponsor to clear his background checks. Kettle immediately asks about Plan B. Plan B is going full rogue. Register as a mercenary. If he grinds out enough quests and builds a solid reputation, the guild will hand him legit papers. The catch? Until you hit the high ranks, you are essentially a glorified delivery boy running cheap fetch quests. The captain shudders, clearly having flashbacks to his own miserable rookie days. He heavily pushes for the noble sponsor, knowing Kettle has the stats to land one instantly. But Kettle's eyes literally sparkle. Wait, being a legit merc? Getting paid to legally slaughter monsters? To him, this is peaking. It is the absolute ultimate isekai fantasy trope come to life. Without skipping a beat, he demands to know the sign-up location. Defeated, the captain sighs and mentions the local guild branch. Kettle flashes a huge grin, basically forcing the guy to play tour guide. Walking over, the captain just can't fathom why anyone would willingly choose that life. Sure, storybooks paint them as cool, wandering lone wolves. People romanticize the whole bounty hunter aesthetic, but the cold, hard truth, unranked mercs are treated worse than dirt. Even mid-tier parties get wiped out daily, playing Russian roulette with unmapped dungeons. They are pure cannon fodder, taking the absolute worst, most toxic jobs. That's why the guild lobby is always a chaotic, filthy disaster zone. Smash cut to the actual guild hall, where total chaos is unfolding. A dude catches a brutal right hook, eating the wooden floorboards hard before scrambling back to his feet. Wiping blood off his lip, he screams at his attacker, ready to throw hands. The other guy flexes, taunting him to step up, while the crowd forms a hype circle. Coins start flying as the peanut gallery places bets on the brawl. Behind the counter, a completely exhausted receptionist buries her face in her hands. Her coworker leans over, asking if today's batch of rookies is any good. Rosa just groans, claiming her current reality is a literal nightmare. The roster is completely unhinged. You've got one crazy guy cosplaying as a holy paladin, a super shady thief, and a nun who looks decent on paper. But thanks to her super questionable deity, nobody wants to party up with her either. Rosa looks ready to quit on the spot, and her buddy just winces in sympathy. Rosa complains that there hasn't been a single normal, functional human being all week. Just these sweaty, aggro meatheads tearing up the lobby. She dramatically stares at the ceiling, manifesting a gorgeous, main character Prince Charming to kick the doors open and save her from this dead-end retail hell. Right on cue, the heavy oak doors creak open. Rosa's heart skips a beat. She locks eyes with the entrance, only to see a towering, scarred barbarian barking out a question about registration. The entire room freezes. Fists stop midair. Every single jaw drops as the locals process that an actual, literal barbarian just casually walked into their turf. Completely blind to the lethal tension, Kettle is absolutely glowing with excitement. He slams his hand on the counter, announcing he's ready to sign up, leaving a stunned Rosa stuttering out a desperate question of why. She is literally shaking in her boots right now. Kettle calmly drops the lore. There are a few reasons, but mainly, he heard mercenary work is the ultimate cheat code to getting legal citizenship. She nods, admitting that's true, but warns him that climbing the mercenary ranks is an absolute grindfest requiring a mountain of achievements. She nervously asks if he's really down for that kind of hustle. Without missing a beat, he agrees. Relief washes over her as she charges him 5 copper coins for the registration fee, asking for his basic stats, name and age. He drops the name Kettle, but admits his age is a total mystery. Sweating slightly, she decides to just eyeball it and guess a random number, sliding his official paperwork and shiny new mercenary badge across the counter. She gives him a stern warning. This badge is his literal lifeline, so do not lose it. Kettle stares at the metal tag, scooping it up with the pure, unfiltered joy of a kid ripping open presents on Christmas morning. Hyped, he immediately demands to know what kind of missions are on the board, itching to jump straight into the action. She awkwardly corrects him, saying they go by requests around here, not jobs. She slides over the beginner tier list. He scans the parchment, utterly deadpan, asking if this is seriously a joke. The legendary quests? Picking weeds, scrubbing out dingy basements, scooping sewer muck, sweeping the streets, and walking the night shift. Trembling, she explains the harsh reality. As an F-rank newbie, he is stuck doing the absolute bottom-of-the-barrel tasks. Knowing barbarian pride, she braces herself for an epic temper tantrum, quickly adding that if he just survives the noob grind and levels up his reputation, he will eventually unlock the elite, hardcore missions. To her absolute shock, he points a massive finger at the board and claims his first target. It's the herb-picking quest. She stammers, asking if he's completely sure, but Kettle is locked in, declaring this is his calling, and he has absolutely zero complaints. He casually asks for the spawn point, and she directs him to the wilderness just past the village borders, handing him a crude sketch of the target plants. Announcing his departure, he strides out the door, leaving her completely stunned. She is totally mind-blown by his immaculate, chill vibes, while her coworker in the background is having a literal panic attack over the sheer size of the guy. Marching into the forest, Kettle spots the exact flora from the drawing. He mutters that these weeds are top tier for healing HP, even if they look weirdly suspicious. In a sudden twist, he strips off his shirt, claiming he brought some heavy-duty UV gear, and officially kicks off his mercenary debut. Fast forward about 1 hour, and he marches back into the guild hauling a massive, overflowing sack. He drops the loot, asking if this hits the quota. Her jaw drops at the sheer volume, secretly sweating that this absolute unit just terrorized the local ecosystem and ripped up the entire field. But then, she inspects the goods. The herbs are flawless. Usually, meathead mercs just rip these plants from the dirt like total savages, completely tanking their market value. Smirking, Kettle flexes that, despite his hulking physique, he actually possesses an incredibly delicate touch. Still recovering from the shock, she praises his epic hustle and hands over the official bounty for his first clear. The payout? One single silver coin. It's barely enough to afford the most garbage-tier tavern food. But for Kettle, it is the greatest treasure on earth, his very first paycheck earned from an honest grind. Still riding that dopamine high, he immediately slams his hand on the desk, demanding another quest. The receptionist is short-circuiting. She cannot wrap her head around this guy's insane work ethic, especially for a supposed wild barbarian. Kettle just shrugs, noting there's plenty of daylight left, so he is ready to speedrun as many tasks as humanly possible. Watching his massive, goofy grin, she officially decides this muscle-bound rookie is a complete weirdo. Pointing at the board, Kettle locks in his next target, initiating part 2 of his grind set, warehouse duty. But zooming out, we realize this absolute madman has already checked off a massive list of chores. Rosa realizes this is literally his third janitorial quest since the herb gathering. Low-key convinced this giant just has a weird cleaning fetish, she gives him the green light. Kettle instantly marches over to the warehouse, stepping inside. The female manager spots him, and he casually announces he is the new cleaning crew. She immediately goes into panic mode, and he politely asks if she's the boss. Trembling, she confirms it, completely baffled as to why a mountain of muscle is here with a mop. For Kettle, organizing the storage unit was an absolute breeze. Tossing massive crates around like empty cardboard boxes was zero issue. Next up, on his hit list, street sweeping. He literally grabs a broom and goes to war against the dust. The hardest part of the entire quest was nerfing his own god-tier strength, just so he wouldn't snap the handle in half, but he locked in and got it done. Meanwhile, someone is lurking in the shadows. It is none other than Kane, rocking the most ridiculous stealth disguise ever, absolutely losing his mind over what he's witnessing. Kettle is confirmed to be insanely overpowered, a walking nuke who could solo an entire kingdom if he actually felt like throwing hands. In plain English, if he just flexed his real aura, the highest nobles would be bowing at his feet. Yet here stands a legendary warrior who could crush any problem with raw strength, doing literal peasant work. And the craziest part? He's not even slacking off. He is sweeping those cobblestones like his life depends on it. Kane is totally glitching out, unable to comprehend why this titan is playing maid. The reality? Kettle is just out here, living his best life, purely vibing with the simple grind. Cut to the next morning. The birds are singing, the sun is shining, and our boy stretches out of bed. He glances over, spotting a heavy little pouch resting on his nightstand. It's his massive loot drop from yesterday's insane speedrun, Rosa had told him. He absolutely crushed his first day in the guild, handing over the payout for every single task. He cleared an insane 15 quests in total. With a flat rate of 1 silver per completion, he's now sitting on a solid stash of 15 silver coins. Overflowing with gratitude, he whispers his thanks to the universe, promising to hit the grind again tomorrow. With a huge smile, he announces the start of his epic second day in human society. The scene cuts to a little kid bawling her eyes out, while the entire town holds its breath in absolute terror. Why? Because Kettle is strolling right through the center of the street. Our massive guy halts, locking his gaze on a local library. Stepping through those doors, he is met by a trembling receptionist trying her hardest to act welcoming. He casually asks to check out some literature. She is practically shaking in her boots as he lumbers past, grabbing towering stacks of reading material. He starts tearing through pages at lightning speed. The poor librarian is left totally jaw-dropped, and honestly, Kane is equally mind-blown watching from the shadows. Kane is fully glitching out over the fact that a literal barbarian knows how to read. He is staying completely out of sight, but he knows for a fact Kettle can feel his presence. These savages are famous for being brain-dead brawlers, yet here one is, diving into literature. Kane questions if these Snowfield warriors actually possess a hidden, sophisticated culture that everyone else missed. Or maybe our boy Kettle is just built differently. Slamming the cover shut, the giant notes that the Empire ultimately secured the victory. A couple of years back, Myelina ventured into the Snowfield, planning to deal heavy weaponry to either the kingdom or the Empire. Clearly, the Empire took the crown in that conflict. Right now, the ruling Empire is an absolute powerhouse, reducing the Varan kingdom to nothing more than a puppet state. They have literally swallowed 50% of humanity's territory, and they are not hitting the brakes anytime soon, pushing forward like they want to consume the entire planet. Kettle processes this massive global domination plot, then he completely shrugs it off. Human politics? Snooze fest. He shifts gears, hunting for lore that actually packs a punch. He dives straight into the files on non-human species. In a world like this, There has to be some insane, top-tier lore covering all these magical entities. He discovers Mentamia, the ultimate dwarven cavern where god-tier minerals are tossed around like literal trash. Then there is Puripia, the hidden fairy settlement, followed by Legomeria, the floating metropolis belonging to the Celestials. But the craziest part is the untouchable Holy Land. That would be Marselia, the ultimate elven sanctuary. It is an absolute legend, a place so elusive that the most overpowered kings have burned endless resources trying to pinpoint the hidden location of Eflod. Reading this, our protagonist realizes a crazy truth. He actually holds the ultra-rare requirements to step foot in that domain. But his brain suddenly connects the dots. There are other terrifying zones out there, just like the White Snowfield. Enter the Demon Zones, nightmarish areas that actively reject humanity, crawling with grotesque alien abominations. And we are not just talking about a couple of random spots. This realm features 5 massive, terrifying sectors. The Silent Forest, where everything rots in absolute quiet. The Abyss, dragging reality itself into darkness. The Deep Sea, an oceanic nightmare where terrestrial primates somehow survive. The Hollowing Pit, a literal void of nothingness. And lastly, the White Snowfield. Deep within these cursed territories lurk horrifying beasts known as aberrations. Luckily, these entities are locked out of the human realm. Mind completely blown, Kettle realizes the sheer, insane scale of this planet. The White Snowfield is already endlessly massive, and there are multiple zones exactly like it. He wraps up, noting he has drained this library of all its useful intel. He drops a genuine thank you to the librarian for the reading session, to which she frantically nods in agreement. Our guy then exits the building, making a beeline back to the Mercenary Guild. He approaches Rosa for the daily grind, causing her to jump out of her skin slightly. She hands over the newest mission bounties, and our barbarian is instantly hyped up. Watching from afar, Kane mutters about how incredibly bizarre this dude is. The stalker finally decides it is time to face the giant head-on. Later that night, while Kettle strolls back to his place, he reflects on his massive grind. He knocked out over 12 missions today alone. Even the low-tier quests are stacking up heavy coin, making the hustle incredibly satisfying. At this speed, hitting top-tier mercenary status is practically guaranteed. Suddenly, the camera pans to Kane, lurking in a dark alley. The second Kettle steps into range. The stalker blocks his path. Kettle raises an eyebrow at the intense death glare, casually dropping the bomb that he knew the guy was tracking him since morning. Kane is absolutely shook by this reveal. The giant demands answers, while the stalker stammers about how perfectly he erased his own aura. He hid his tracks flawlessly, meaning no normal human radar should have picked him up. Unbothered, Kettle instantly assumes this creeping old man is just a local mugger. He instinctively guards his money pouch. Kane is reeling from the pure disrespect of being called a cheap thug. Since the guy is staying quiet, Kettle speaks up. He figures his gut feeling is spot on. Sure, the city guards do a decent job, but low-life criminals always slip through the cracks. Kane aggressively denies it, though he realizes revealing his true identity as a legendary source master would sound totally fake right now. Out of nowhere, Kettle roasts him alive. He calls it downright tragic to be mugging people at retirement age, joking that inflation must be hitting the streets hard. A light bulb goes off in the giant's head. Handing this boomer over to the cops would look absolutely phenomenal on his mercenary resume. Kane is standing there, utterly baffled by this logic, but the master warrior quickly pivots, realizing this misunderstanding is actually the perfect setup. Clashing right here and now is the ultimate way to test the giant's true power levels. Kettle suddenly marches forward, making the seasoned warrior sweat just a little. The barbarian's massive frame sways slightly, and then boom, he vanishes into thin air. Kane's eyes dart around in total panic. Out of absolutely nowhere, the Titan materializes right in his face. Kettle lunges his massive hand forward, and Kane instantly realizes the grim truth. 1 millisecond slower, and his neck was getting snapped. The stalker barely dodges, leading Kettle to smirk and compliment the impressive evasion skills. Now holding a safe distance, Kane is sweating bullets. His god-tier reflexes were the only thing keeping him alive. But here is the most terrifying detail. The giant did not emit a single drop of magic aura. Kettle looks visibly amused, while the warrior's brain short-circuits over that insane movement speed. Pulling that off with raw, unbuffed muscle is physically impossible. Kane realizes playtime is entirely over. This is a life-or-death fight, and he recklessly dives back in. He promises to unleash his absolute maximum power. Kettle simply locks into a combat stance, teleports again, and brutally clamps his grip straight onto Kane's arm. Kane pushes his sensory perception to the absolute limit, but he still completely misses the reaction window as Kettle casually starts twisting his wrist backward. Kane realizes this is way beyond a normal grapple. It literally feels like his arm just got bolted into bedrock, while his entire body gets violently ragdolled. Total panic sets in as Kane starts shrieking, losing his mind over this monstrous physical strength before coming to a terrifying realization. This is not even a fair fight in the brute force department, so left with zero options, he decides to stop holding back and unleashes his absolute maximum energy. A violent surge of pressure explodes outward, catching Kettle's attention immediately. The barbarian actually looks mildly shocked as the intense aura radiates through the air. A blinding shockwave of neon green energy detonates, forcing Kane to desperately leap backward for space, leaving Kettle literally crushing a handful of raw aura in his bare grip. Kane locks in, bracing for the next lethal strike, while Kettle just casually remarks that modern-day street thugs are really stepping up their combat mechanics. Kane is utterly flabbergasted that this guy still views him as a petty criminal, especially since manifesting raw mana is a god-tier technique strictly reserved for the absolute top percentile elites. He just coded his entire physical form in pure magic, so why on earth would someone with this kind of stat block be mugging people in an alley? He cannot fathom how Kettle actually buys this narrative. Flashing back for a split second, Kane realizes he activated his energy shield purely out of a deep survival instinct, knowing full well that solid aura slices through reinforced titanium like warm butter, meaning a regular human physique should have instantly evaporated the second they made physical contact. But Kettle does not have a single scratch on him, leaving Kane genuinely tweaking as he tries to comprehend what kind of mutant biology allows a guy to casually tank weaponized magic. And he did it without even casting a defensive buff. Kettle sighs, stating he has zero clue what flashy trick that was, but he is officially bored and ready to roll the credits on this fight. Kane aggressively grabs for his hilt, but his heart drops into his stomach. Kettle just teleported right into his personal space, completely erasing the distance between them. With ultimate disrespect, the barbarian pins the blade shut using exactly one finger, while Kane violently yanks at his weapon in pure desperation. His brain short-circuits at the sheer absurdity of the situation once he realizes the sword is literally locked in place, and he groans through clenched teeth, straining with everything he has left. He puts his entire soul into drawing the blade, only to watch his own metal hilt physically warp under the intense pressure, sending a cold chill down his spine as he realizes he is completely cooked. Kettle casually extends a massive hand right toward his face, prompting a solitary, dramatic tear to roll down Kane's cheek as he mentally prepares for his own funeral. Fast forward a bit, and Kettle casually mutters that the skirmish was somewhat entertaining, hauling a knocked-out Kane over his massive shoulder while expressing disbelief that a petty criminal living in this fantasy dimension actually possessed those kinds of high-level mechanics. Cut to the local outpost, where the guard captain demands to know what on earth is happening. Kettle just thrusts his arm forward, dangling the unconscious Kane in the breeze like a misbehaving puppy he caught digging up his backyard. The captain is internally screaming, desperately trying to figure out why this royal VIP is randomly showing up here, quietly wondering if this giant brute seriously just jumped him in broad daylight. Breaking the heavy tension, Kettle proudly announces he apprehended a street mugger, causing the captain's jaw to practically unhinge at the sheer audacity of that claim. The barbarian then casually asks if dropping off this bounty will boost his official mercenary experience points. The poor captain is completely glitching out, unable to process the absolute chaos unfolding right in front of him. He deeply analyzes the visual, knowing full well that Kane is a living legend, a warrior who ascended to the absolute peak of superhuman mastery. Yet here he is, getting manhandled by a wild foreigner in the most embarrassing, pathetic posture imaginable. Sweating profusely, the official nervously clarifies that the captive is definitely not a criminal, prompting Kettle to tilt his head and ask if they are drinking buddies. He even outright accuses the captain of being a co-conspirator. Ignoring the massive disrespect, the officer snaps his heels together and drops into a perfectly rigid, formal stance. With trembling respect, he loudly declares his absolute loyalty to the Swordmaster, the one and only supreme blade wielder in their entire nation. Kettle glances down, looking incredibly confused. While Kane fiercely refuses to make eye contact with a single soul in the room, the barbarian argues it makes zero logical sense for a high-tier noble to cosplay as a mugger. He swears the guy literally ambushed him over a handful of silver change, but the captain doubles down, aggressively insisting he would never misidentify the kingdom's greatest weapon. Coping hard, Kettle questions if this is secretly a wizard projecting a high-level visual trick, but the captain claps back, stating any sorcerer with that kind of immense talent would automatically hold the exact same royal prestige anyway. Grasping at straws, Kettle seriously asks if Swordmaster is just modern slang for a syndicate boss. The officer stares at him like he just grew a second head, violently questioning his absolute lack of sanity, before a brutally awkward, dead quiet pause fills the room. Breaking the silence, Kettle softly asks for final confirmation on the VIP title, and the captain nods firmly, instantly sending the barbarian's brain into a massive existential spiral. Wasting zero time, the official promises to escalate this absolute madness directly to the governing lord. Cut to the manor, where Lord Luke aggressively body slams his mahogany desk. He demands to know if Sir Kane actually took an absolute loss. The scene instantly cuts to Kettle profusely apologizing, admitting he totally jumped the gun instead of letting the guy speak. But Kane immediately takes full accountability, admitting his hostile silence caused the entire disaster, leaving the two warriors sitting there in agonizing, cringe-inducing silence, while Lord Luke watches, completely lost. The Lord fully anticipated his elite knight hunting down this wild foreigner for an epic showdown, but watching his top guy catch a massive beatdown was definitely not on his bingo card. He might not have the play-by-play footage, but the writing is on the wall. His absolute champion suffered an undeniable, crushing defeat, which implies a terrifying truth. This random barbarian completely outscales their ultimate weapon. Sure, power rankings exist even within the superhuman tier, and Kane just recently unlocked his awakening, meaning he technically sits at the bottom of the elite ladder, but earning that specific title still requires genuine, God-given talent and royal recognition as a supreme deity of the blade. The fact that Kettle swept the floor with him proves this absolute unit cannot be controlled by anyone, causing Luke to aggressively rub his temples over a sudden migraine. Sensing the suffocating, awkward tension in the air, the noble declares this a massive communication error and abruptly decides to hit the eject button on the whole conversation. He suggests the two heavyweights hash out their beef privately before sprinting out the door. Left totally alone, Kettle locks onto his target with a deadpan stare, while the so-called swordmaster just sits there, sweating absolute bullets. The guy is straight up humiliated, but honestly, he cannot even complain. It was a flawless beatdown, and his ego is not just bruised, it is completely trashed. Setting down his teacup, he clears his throat, deciding it is time for a proper intro. He formally introduces himself to Kettle. Kettle tilts his head, wondering if Swordmaster is literally his last name, forcing Kane to sigh and explain. When you hit his god-tier level of power, last names are totally irrelevant. Kettle nods, soaking the lore in. Then he drops the golden question, asking about that crazy move from earlier. Caught off guard by the curiosity, Kane ignites this glowing energy. He asks if this is what the big guy meant. Kettle instantly hypes up, admitting he totally brushed it off as some cheap bandit gimmick at first. But knowing it is legit Swordmaster magic, now he is hooked. Kane drops the facts, calling it the physical manifestation of the arcane, better known as aura. Kettle is basically fanboying, stoked to witness actual aura from a top-tier legend in this crazy fantasy universe. He immediately begs for a tutorial. Kane explains the core mechanic, stating you have to physically project the energy out, and that requires mastering the arcane. Kettle pauses, asking if that is basically just mana. Kane breaks it down for him. The arcane is the raw, pure energy. Channel it into aura, boom, you are a swordsman. Shape it into mana, you are officially a mage. Mind blown by the crossover, Kettle asks the ultimate question. Will the master actually train him? He awkwardly admits his magic stats are absolute garbage, and he is desperate to level up his knowledge. He practically begs, dropping a hard please. Kane agrees, but he is visibly confused. Why does a dude who just folded him need lessons? Kettle confesses he is absolutely clueless about magic, or sword skills for that matter. He literally just swings and prays. Kane is skeptical but immediately starts coping hard, rationalizing that he is a literal swordmaster. Sure, he caught a massive loss, but his blade stayed sheathed. He decides to school this barbarian in true combat. Time to flex his anu dominance and glue his shattered ego back together. He accepts, boldly claiming that without a weapon, he was fighting at 50% power anyway. Kettle completely misses the flex, bluntly agreeing that makes sense since he felt incredibly weak, blaming the loss entirely on the sheathed weapon. Taking psychic damage from the accidental roast, Kane awkwardly agrees. Kettle ruthlessly adds that he thought it was super weird for a so-called master to be that incredibly squishy, and maybe, just maybe, an actual sword would have changed the outcome. Kane, internally sweating, is not entirely convinced about that. While the big guy is practically vibrating with hype for the tutorial, Kane is spiraling, wondering if he will ever mentally recover from this. His imposter syndrome is going crazy right now. Meanwhile, Kettle casually drops that he did study some blade work before spawning here. But this is peak fantasy combat. A wild, unearthly fighting style that literally bends the arcane aura to its will, and he is dead set on mastering it. Shifting back to mentor mode, Kane reveals his signature style focuses on making illusions reality. He challenges Kettle, asking if he caught that trick during the brawl with his apprentice. Kettle rubs his chin, admitting he had zero clue that Random Knight was his student. But thinking back, the dude did split his blade into 3 physical, solid strikes. Realizing that is the whole embodiment gimmick, he guesses the combat style relies heavily on pure finesse over raw stats. Kane smirks, confirming he nailed it. True mastery is fusing cold steel with glowing aura to command the arcane itself, and whoever maxes out that skill tree claims the title of Swordmaster. Without warning, Kane channels blinding energy into his blade. Kettle totally geeks out, calling it the coolest thing ever. Kane agrees, though deep down, he is still tripping over this bizarre master-student dynamic. But whatever. If he is going to teach this absolute unit how to fight, he needs to flex his absolute best moves. Zero holding back. Since making illusions real sounds super nerdy and confusing, a live demo is better. Kane locks in, eyes fierce, and unleashes a brutal horizontal slash. His aura-drenched blade completely obliterates the floor, instantly fracturing into 5 distinct, devastating energy waves. Kettle's jaw drops, watching a single swing multiply into 5 distinct hits, tearing across the entire room. Breathing heavy, Kane flexes, claiming plenty of fighters can project fake aura holograms, but giving those phantoms actual, bone-crushing mass, that is his exclusive Tier 1 skill. Kettle murmurs the move's name, and Kane proudly asks if his mind is blown. With zero hesitation, the barbarian casually claims he could totally pull it off. Kane's brain short-circuits. He snaps, calling out the absolute disrespect. He literally sacrificed his entire existence to the blade, grinding through hellish training with elite genetics, and he still barely unlocked this ultimate art. Copying it on the fly? Literally impossible. Especially after witnessing it just one single time. Kettle just shrugs, deciding actions speak louder than words as he casually grips his weapon. A massive, hulking battle axe. Planting his feet into a wide, grounded stance, he hauls the heavy steel over his shoulder and brutally swings, blurring into a chaotic flurry of simultaneous strikes. Kane's eyes bulge out of his skull, immediately yelling that this is absolute nonsense and nothing like his technique, calling it nothing but feral, monkey-brained muscle power. Yet, insanely, the barbarian traces the exact trajectory perfectly, only millions of times more lethal, detonating the space with a massive, shockwave-inducing explosion. As the smoke clears from the red-hot axe, Kettle turns back, casually asking for a grade. Utterly shell-shocked, Kane stammers. He admits it visually mirrored his masterpiece perfectly, driven by just psychotic speed and raw power. Honestly, it completely fooled him for a second. Kane points out that Kettle's move was just pure, unadulterated brute force, zero actual skill involved. But Kettle shuts that down real quick, pointing out the damage output was practically identical. In real life or death combat, who cares about form if the enemy ends up in the dirt? Kane pauses, letting that harsh truth sink in. He admits the barbarian has a valid point, but his swordsman ego is absolutely bruised. Smirking, Kane decides to dial up the heat and challenges him to mimic his ultimate move. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. Kane doesn't just swing his blade, his physical form literally splinters into multiple shimmering after-images, charging up a colossal wave of energy. Boom! A massive shockwave nukes the area seriously. RIP to the training ground. Flexing his aura, Kane boasts that this high-tier technique is known as bodily separation. He claims it requires absolute god-tier aura control, practically daring the big guy to replicate it. Unfazed, Kettle simply pivots. He takes a few heavy steps to the side, giving himself some breathing room. Hoisting his massive axe, he locks in, fully committing to ripping off the swordsman's signature move. Kane's jaw drops. Eerie, pitch-black silhouettes begin glitching out around Kettle's body, hovering in the exact same formation Kane just demonstrated. The barbarian unleashes a catastrophic violet cyclone that absolutely obliterates whatever was left of the landscape. Devastated, Kane literally drops to his knees, tears streaming down his face. He starts having a full-blown existential crisis, weeping over decades of grinding, being completely outclassed. He mutters that his life's dedication is total trash, refusing to accept reality. Bro is straight up hyperventilating like he's going into cardiac arrest. Kettle ruthlessly roasts him, claiming the swordsman's mental fortitude is so one-ply toilet paper that wiping with it would lead to a total disaster. Still, he throws the crying guy a bone, admitting Kane's technique is genuinely top tier. As the swordsman peers up, Kettle clarifies that his own attack was literally just swinging real fast. He confesses there was zero actual martial art involved. While Kane manifested legitimate aura clones, Kettle just moved at breakneck speed, meaning he still completely lacks true magical refinement. Sniffling back his pathetic sobs, Kane's ego slowly regenerates. He hypes himself back up, realizing his disciplined mastery is uniquely his own and incredibly lethal. The issue wasn't a flaw in his training, it's that this barbarian is a certified freak of nature. He stares in absolute disbelief, questioning what kind of absolute psychopath moves with that kind of velocity, creating physical afterimages entirely without supernatural energy. That completely defies the laws of human biology. Breaking the silence, Kettle chimes in. He straight up asks to be mentored in the legitimate art of aura wielding. The request makes Kane freeze in his tracks. Awkwardly apologizing for his melodramatic breakdown, the swordsman admits he caught too many feelings. Kettle gives him a pass, prompting Kane to cough loudly to regain his composure. Slipping into sensei mode, he explains that unlocking supreme combat skills demands flawless aura manipulation. But to even touch that level, there's a massive prerequisite. You have to deeply conceptualize the arcane essence. Whether you wield a staff, a blade, or curses, breaching the elite tier is impossible without it. Unless you spark that core magic, you're hard stuck, with the sole exception being holy worshippers. This piques Kettle's curiosity, asking if cleric magic operates on a completely different software. Kane confirms that divine blessings are basically handouts from deities, totally disconnected from a fighter's personal stat pool. Intrigued, the barbarian leans in. Kane elaborates that true arcane energy is exactly what it sounds like, a hidden, internalized cosmic battery waiting to be tapped. Mastering the output of that inner battery dictates your entire combat ceiling. Kettle connects the dots, realizing that stepping up his game, whether swinging aura, hoarding mana, or commanding spirits, all starts here. Everything hinges on his ability to grasp this magical theory. The system is split into 5 distinct tiers, kicking off with the absolute baseline, arcane perception. It's all about booting up your internal radar and feeling the vibe of the universe. Kettle tilts his head, wondering if literally any random non-player character can tune into this frequency. Kane shuts that down immediately. Without innate potential, you remain entirely blind to the energy, but cross that threshold, and society officially labels you a third-class user. The entire hierarchy of magical proficiency is chopped up into 5 brackets, making third class the starting line for true warriors. Suddenly, a nostalgic memory hits Kettle. 5 years back, a girl named Elena dropped similar lore drops during their travels. He finally pieces together the puzzle of her cryptic warnings. Kane chimes in, warning him that the ranking system is super broad, and power levels wildly fluctuate even among peers sharing the same title. The power scaling isn't an exact science, but having the foundational knowledge is crucial. Nodding, the barbarian locks the info into his brain. Wasting no time, Kane initiates the tutorial, stressing that perception is always level 1. He instructs Kettle to basically meditate and absorb the environment. Grasping the magic means unlocking a 6th sense he's literally never used before. He has to stretch his physical awareness to the absolute limit. He instructs him to track the microscopic currents of the breeze, root himself to the dirt, and map out every single moving particle in the air. Hidden inside nature's white noise is an invisible pulse he must locate. Kettle drops into a hardcore meditative pose, straining his mind, before abruptly snapping his eyes open. He bluntly announces he doesn't feel a single thing. Kane is so spectacularly dumbfounded that his brain practically blue screens trying to process the failure. Stuttering a bit, he double-checks if Kettle is being serious. Usually, absolute monsters with that much raw physical dominance breeze through this stage instantly. While not mathematically guaranteed, fighters packing ridiculous base stats usually have their magical radar turn on automatically. He sighs, guessing that barbarians must be the ultimate outliers to the magic meta. He chalks up the anomaly to the brutal, magicless environment of the White Wasteland. Kettle just shrugs cluelessly. Back in his icy homeland, literally nobody ever talked about feeling mysterious, invisible energies, mostly because his people punch first and think never. Regaining his teacher persona, Kane assures him that jumpstarting this ability is a massive struggle for normal folks anyway. Taking drastic measures, he offers to forcefully inject his own power into Kettle's veins to blast the pathways open. The big guy's eyes light up, hyped at the prospect of an aura transplant. Kane nods, saying it's close enough to that concept. Hyped out of his mind, Kettle declares he's born ready, prompting the swordsman to step up. He barks at him to drop all muscle tension, dive deep into his own headspace, and anchor his awareness directly inside his chest cavity. The goal is to track the foreign energy surging into his system. But the second Kane makes contact, he recoils in sheer terror, horrified by the absolute anatomical nightmare inside Kettle, questioning if this dude even belongs to the human race. Touching this guy is like slapping solid granite. His muscle density is so utterly off the charts, it screams, yeah, this dude is definitively not human. Kettle tilts his head, asking if everything is good. Shaking off the shock, Kane admits he just zoned out for a second. But now they are officially good to go. Step 1. Initiate the aura flow. The ultimate endgame here is jump-starting that dormant arcane path buried deep inside our boy. Pinpointing that inner magical highway should be a total breeze. Or so Kane thinks, until reality hits him like an absolute freight train. Panic starts creeping in. Kane is frantically searching, but he straight up cannot hit the arcane circuit inside this guy. Meanwhile, Kettle is just chilling there. Blissfully clueless, our barbarian assumes the magic is flowing, but Kane is sweating bullets. No matter how deep he pushes his own aura, he hits absolute zero. Total void. It feels like free-falling into a pitch-black trench. Wait, no, it is worse. It is like being physically crushed by the suffocating pressure of the ocean floor. Coughing awkwardly to break the silence, Kane drops the bomb. This is a massive bust. Kettle just blinks, completely confused about what went wrong. He asks if he is just magically talentless. Kane shakes his head, explaining it is not a skill issue. Pumping raw aura into him just is not making a dent. To spark the arcane, they have to physically locate that inner pathway and rip that dormant energy awake. Kettle nods, remembering the lecture from earlier. But Kane straight up admits he couldn't even map out the route to his core. Our boy tilts his head, asking what the major holdup is. He wonders if he is literally immune to magic. Kane corrects him, saying it is not about sensing it. He literally cannot even verify if the hardware exists in there. Scratching his head, Kettle asks for the translation. Kane sighs, explaining that his anatomy is fundamentally glitched. To trigger the magic, the aura needs to penetrate deep, but this dude's flesh is basically armor plating. Kane's energy could not even pierce the surface layer, something he has never witnessed in his entire life. His raw, monstrous physical stats are literally bullying the magic out of the way. Kettle slumps slightly, realizing even a top-tier swordmaster is hitting a brick wall. Letting out a heavy sigh, he asks if his magic dreams are permanently cooked. Kane gives a frustratingly vague answer. He honestly cannot confirm or deny it. Since he couldn't even locate the starting line, he suggests tracking down an overpowered Aura Grandmaster, or dragging himself all the way to the Mage's Tower. Kane apologizes for the massive letdown, but Kettle just shrugs it off. Hey, a 1% chance is still a chance, and that is all the fuel he needs right now. Springing to his feet, he drops a genuine thank you for the crash course. Kane is left utterly stunned. Every other barbarian he has dealt with was a feral menace. Usually, they are just exiled thugs who loot, binge drink, and throw hands 24/7. But this guy, he is built different. So, Kane drops a wild proposition. Join the kingdom's payroll. Kettle blinks, asking him to spell it out. Kane looks him dead in the eye and asks him to swear official allegiance to the crown, grab a formal title. With his broken stats, he would skyrocket up the ranks, backed by Kane's personal VIP sponsorship. Kettle smirks, admitting it is a juicy offer, but he hits him with a hard pass. Chains just are not his aesthetic. Kane mentally facepalms, knowing this absolute unit could single-handedly snap the Empire's chokehold on them. Desperate, Kane pushes harder. Not even a shiny noble title? That is lottery-winning status right there. Kettle genuinely chews on the thought for a second. Ultimately, nah, he would rather roam wild and free. Seeing that unyielding spark in his eyes, Kane backs off, realizing you cannot leash a dragon. Bowing his head, Kettle promises to remember this solid favor. Watching him walk away, Kane cannot help but mourn the massive missed opportunity. Cut to Kane pacing by himself later, muttering out loud about how completely delusional he was being. Thinking he could tame that beast, even for a millisecond? Absolute comedy. The guy operates on his own frequency. Sure, he might party up with others, but his loyalty is strictly internal. He keeps his cards plastered to his chest. That silent, unpredictable nature makes him infinitely more dangerous than any screaming berserker. Throw in a literal entity from the demon realm, pair that with a savage from the White Wasteland, and you have a recipe for pure chaos. He rubs his temples, groaning about how invading the demon realm is pure suicide. What kind of psycho logic is the Emperor running on? The scene snaps to Luke, who is catching up on this exact intel and calling absolute cap on the whole situation. Kane grimly points out that scouts are getting slaughtered in the name of intel gathering. Luke's jaw drops, asking if he is dead serious right now. Kane nods. He speculates the Emperor might literally be possessed by some bloodthirsty ancient conqueror. But honestly, that is tomorrow's nightmare. They have not even fully dominated the human territories yet. Luke darkly replies that the clock is ticking on that too. Because their turf still technically bows to the Empire, a draft order could drop any second. Better stay strapped and ready. Luke throws him a quick thanks for the heads up. Kane just exhales exhaustion. The world is already a dumpster fire, and now the man in charge has officially lost the plot. It is a massive migraine waiting to happen. Suddenly tense, Luke asks if the street whispers are legit. Kane does not sugarcoat it. Yes, the demons are mobilizing. Fear flashes across Luke's face. Kane adds that these spontaneous dungeon breaks are completely out of pocket, and while nothing is on paper yet, the underground network swears the toxic sludge of the demon realm is bleeding into their world. Something massive is brewing in the shadows. Whatever is about to pop off, humanity is going to take a massive L. But then Kane pauses, realizing the most glitch in the Matrix anomaly is already sitting right in their base. Luke firmly agrees. When Kane asks for his read on the guy, Luke hesitates, admitting he is completely stumped. The only thing he knows for sure, the guy is not plotting their downfall. Beyond that, he is a total mystery. Yeah, they are absolutely talking about Kettle. Smashing cut back to town. Our boy Kettle is casually strolling the streets when he notices a terrified kid clinging to his mom like his life depends on it. A random local literally dives behind a barrel to avoid eye contact. Kettle halts, seriously pondering if his dripping with blood aura is terrifying them, or if it is just his fit. He scratches his chin, legitimately wondering if they are hating on his lack of formal streetwear. I mean, a raw beast-hide vest goes undeniably hard, right? But looking like a wild beast doesn't exactly scream friendly neighbor. He figures the locals probably think he's totally unhinged and are avoiding him like the plague. He's completely misreading the room, of course, but a light bulb goes off. It is officially time to ditch the caveman aesthetic and cop some actual threads. He strolls right into a local boutique. The shopkeeper steps up with a customer service smile, which instantly evaporates into pure, unfiltered panic. Kettle casually mentions he needs a new wardrobe. Trembling, the poor guy stammers out that they carry 0 items in absolute unit sizes, leaving our massive barbarian pretty bummed out. Pressing for options, Kettle asks if there is any workaround. The tailor gulps and suggests that, if he's cool with waiting, they could pull off a custom-tailored fit. Kettle's eyes light up, asking if they can actually pull that off, and enthusiastically agrees. The worker frantically nods, playing along just to survive. He promises to ping Kettle the second the outfit drops, but internally, the dude is absolutely spiraling, terrified of what this walking mountain might do if the drip doesn't match the vibe. He's literally praying he lives to see tomorrow. Cut to later. Kettle is cruising toward the Mercenary Guild when something catching the light on the dirt completely derails him. Scooping up the tiny, random object, he wonders why a literal gemstone is just chilling in the dirt. Suddenly, the thing flares up with an intense, blinding glow. Utterly baffled by the mini light show, he figures Rosa might have a clue. Marching up to her desk, he flexes the mystery rock and asks for an expert opinion. He casually drops that it was floor loot on his commute. Squinting at it, she immediately declares, "This is no basic marble," and Kettle absolutely agrees that the vibes are off. She points out it doesn't even feel like natural jewelry. The exterior is way too polished, clearly sculpted by someone or something. Yet, it rocks 0 engravings or brandings. Suddenly, Rosa's pupils dilate, a cloudy haze washing over her eyes as she mindlessly whispers about its potential market value. Catching the creepy shift, Kettle fires off a sharp snap right in her face. The trance breaks instantly, leaving her slumping in her chair like a rebooting NPC. He checks if she is mentally present, and she blinks, totally confused. When he points out she just got hardcore hypnotized by a rock, she defensively questions if he's seeing things. Waving it off, he tells her to drop the subject. Shaking her head, Rosa admits it is incredibly hard to read, but it radiates an undeniable, freakish aura. She senses some seriously dark magic pulsing from the core and offers to run a legit appraisal. Kettle flashes a grin, telling her thanks but no thanks. He claims solving the mystery himself is half the fun. Pivoting like nothing happened, he demands the daily quest list, prompting her to shuffle through her paperwork. Sliding the board over, we get a peek at the epic missions: scrubbing gutters, plunging sewers, yanking weeds, and harvesting spuds. Unironically, our guy looks hyped beyond belief. Flash forward to midnight. A fat pouch of coins rests on his nightstand after a solid grind session, but his brain is still obsessing over that sketchy artifact. Remembering how Rosa almost blue-screened staring at it, he furiously tries to decode its true purpose. Right on cue, reality takes a massive left turn. A phantom whisper echoes, begging him to approach. He freezes, questioning his own sanity, while the ghostly command loops in his brain, chanting at him to follow the signal. Kettle arches an eyebrow, highly curious about this supernatural GPS. A literal mini-map burns into his consciousness, screaming hardcore mind control magic to anyone paying attention. The invasive voice refuses to quit. Glancing out into the pitch-black night, he shrugs, figuring a spontaneous midnight side quest could not possibly end badly. The telepathic spam gets annoying fast, forcing Kettle to verbally tell the ghost to touch grass. Suddenly, he slams the brakes and tilts his head upward. A gaping, ominous cavern looms ahead. Questioning if this is the drop zone, a cocky smirk spreads across his face, while deep inside the shadows, hollow skeletal eye sockets flare to life. Stepping into the abyss, he casually searches for the DJ of the telepathic broadcast. From the dark, the undead menace gloats that fresh meat has just delivered itself. Taking one look at our hulking protagonist, the monster assumes he is just a brainless brute, but admits the sheer mass of this dude makes for top-tier ritual fuel. Hitting the magic number 10 for sacrifices, the villain feels like he struck the jackpot, believing full resurrection is locked in. Man, this arrogant bag of bones has no idea what is coming. Time for a lore drop. Back in the era of the Great War, when entire empires were getting wiped off the map, one mastermind was pulling the strings. Enter a twisted sorcerer who hijacked human emotions like cheat codes. This guy lived to brainwash royalty and use monarchs as his personal chess pieces. He sparked endless bloodshed and sat comfortably at the top of the food chain until his legendary kill count finally triggered massive server-wide aggro. A squad of elite heroes crashed his party, but right before catching the final blow, this slippery mage uploaded his essence into a cursed phylactery That nasty little trick evolved him into a lich. For the uninitiated, locking your soul in external hardware means you cheat death entirely. You literally cannot kill a lich unless you smash the hardware. So, the fallen tyrant faded into the shadows, plotting an epic comeback tour. Knowing he required a massive blood toll to reboot his physical form, he camped out near a sleepy province and started dropping hypnotic bait across the map. He reeled in random victims one by one, tossing their lives into the grinder to forge a mana core dense enough to power his rebirth. The endgame? Steamroll the planet with god-tier stats. He was inching dangerously close to a total victory screen, deliberately choosing this exact zone for a reason. He targeted Kettle's turf specifically because it was off the grid. Grinding experience points in stealth mode requires zero attention from the big city elites. That makes a massive northern barbarian stumbling into this zone a major anomaly. The Lich notes that this absolute unit must have hiked miles out of his natural biome, but judging by the sheer beef on him, he is a premium grade offering. See, the bait was coated with a specific filter. It exclusively hypnotizes non-magic users. If you haven't unlocked your mana pool, the trap snaps shut. It basically preys on average citizens who have zero defense against mystic arts. In the villain's mind, our buff hero is just an overleveled peasant with zero magical resistance. So seeing him march in without acting like a zombie, he brushes it off as a glitch in the matrix, confidently watching his final battery pack deliver himself to the altar. Meanwhile, Kettle casually kicks open a massive set of stone gates. Calling out that he finally reached the destination marker, our guy strides into the throne room, only to blink in surprise as he locks eyes with an ancient, skeletal demon boss. Who's next on the chopping block? Kettle stares down his opponent, questioning if this dude is actually a lich. I mean, we're talking about a god-tier status only elite mages ever unlock. You know the vibes, the absolute endgame boss you see lurking in every top-tier fantasy manhwa. Seeing one in the flesh is completely mind-blowing. Meanwhile, the undead sorcerer glares back, completely baffled as to why this random barbarian isn't mind-controlled by his magical orb. Kettle just chuckles, instantly piecing together that this glowing trap is how the boss has been baiting his victims. The skeletal mage narrows his eyes. He can't detect a single drop of arcane energy coming off our boy. A basic warrior like him should be totally hypnotized right now. So, the boss jumps to the only logical conclusion. This meathead must be rocking an S-class defensive item. Something crazy powerful to completely jam his magical radar. How a brute bagged such legendary loot is beyond him. He figures the guy just rolled a nat 20 on luck. Must have tripped over a mythic drop, he mutters. But Kettle flat out denies having any magical gear. The villain scoffs, warning him that lying to a supreme being is useless. He spits out a chilling threat. If the warrior had just let the brainwash happen, his death would have been quick. Now, he's getting ripped apart the hard way. Snapping his bony fingers, he summons a wave of undead grunts. As the skeleton mob swarms in, our MC just grins. A cursed dungeon packed with an endgame boss? This is exactly the kind of chaotic content he signed up for. The pieces are finally clicking together just as a bone soldier launches itself at his face. Without blinking, Kettle backhands the monster so hard its skull straight up vaporizes. The Lich freezes, absolutely flabbergasted, watching his minion crumble into literal chalk dust. Brushing his knuckles off, our hero yawns. Kind of squishy, honestly. I expected way better. Sweat basically drips down the boss's invisible forehead. Trying to save face, the villain growls, promising to see if that trash talk keeps up once all 4 of his limbs are ripped off. After all, he only needs the barbarian breathing barely. He spawns a massive second wave of bonewalkers, ordering them to shred the intruder. Realizing diplomacy is dead, our MC decides it's time to take out the trash. He tightens his grip and goes absolute goblin mode. A right hook decapitates the first target, immediately followed by a brutal left cross that shatters another's ribcage. A spinning high kick deletes the third, before he grabs the final grunt and pile drives it straight through the cavern floor. The Grand Sorcerer, jaw literally on the ground. Dusting off his boots, Kettle realizes his mentor Kaizen wasn't capping, crushed the brain pan, and these things drop instantly. Honestly, for a supposed elite necromancer, he fully expected a terrifying Death Knight or some epic spectral horrors. Just low-level skeletons? Pathetic. Hearing his ultimate magic get roasted, the villain's ego shatters. Furious, he screams that playtime is officially over. His dark staff erupts with blinding neon magic, pulling a massive, heavily armored skeleton knight straight out of the abyss. Our MC's eyes light up. Recognizing the heavy hitter, he admits that running into one of these elites down here is a massive plot twist. But considering this bad boy was forged by a legendary boss, it's gotta pack way more punch than usual. Things are finally getting spicy. Pointing a decaying finger forward, the sorcerer orders the execution. The armored juggernaut stamps the ground and charges like a runaway freight train. Winding up his punch, our hero hypes himself up. A premium undead soldier crafted by a master? This has to be a real challenge, right? The knight winds up for a lethal strike, but Kettle completely blitzes it. He buries a punch deep into its iron gut, launching the monster like a cannonball across the entire arena. It slams into the wall with an ear-splitting boom, metal plating detonating everywhere. But as the smoke clears, the broken undead is actually dragging its shattered body back toward the fight. Raising an eyebrow, the warrior admits this guy's durability is no joke. Desperate, the Lich decides to overclock his creation, maxing out its mana core until it's literally overflowing with dark energy. Glowing with chaotic power, the monster missiles straight at our MC's throat. Kettle just stands there, totally unfazed, trying to figure out what this flashy ultimate move is supposed to achieve. Watching it rocket closer, he lets out a massive sigh. For an elite summon crafted by a legendary boss, this is straight up underwhelming. He steps into his stance and delivers a devastating right hook directly to its helmet. The impact sends the knight ricocheting backward, triggering a massive shockwave that rocks the cavern. He pauses, waiting to see if Phase 3 triggers. The undead mage is completely paralyzed by shock. Shockingly enough, the elite knight is permanently reduced to scrap metal. Crushing the remaining bony hand under his boot, our MC yawns. A bit sturdier, sure, but garbage is still garbage. He stares directly at the boss. Is that really your best shot? Panic finally sets in. The sorcerer stammers, demanding to know what kind of freak he's dealing with. There's zero magic aura. If he had an overpowered item, there would be a mana signature. But there's absolutely nothing. The horrifying truth dawns on him. This dude is relying entirely on his own brute muscles. He just one-shotted a premium summon, crushing enchanted armor with bare knuckles? That defies every single law of magic in this world. The villain's brain is short-circuiting, trying to process the logic. He admits out loud that this barbarian is a complete anomaly. Watching the boss tweak out, Kettle raises an eyebrow. Taking a breath, the villain declares he's stepping onto the battlefield himself. Demanding respect, he claims dying by his hand is the ultimate privilege. Suddenly, the entire cavern plunges into absolute pitch darkness. Instead of panicking, our MC's blood pumps with pure hype. Two menacing, glowing eyes pierce the shadows. The boss taunts him, asking if the fear is kicking in, promising a gruesome payback. Breaking into his sacred territory comes with a lethal toll, but Kettle just shrugs it off, casually pointing out that the weird glowing orb dragged him down here. Assuming the boss was the puppet master, the undead mage smirks through the void. Bingo. Every single soul whose bones now litter this dungeon was reeled in by that exact same trap.